Link is hereby called to order at 6:02 p.m. This meeting may also be viewed live and remotely on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite those participating remotely to do the same. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, flag, visible with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'll start with a roll call of the commission. Please verbally indicate you are present after your name is called. Commissioner Kelly. Present. Commissioner Parkins. Present. Commissioner Amato. Here. Commissioner Donato.
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger. Has alternate Commissioner Onofrio joined us? Okay, I'll finish the roll call. Mr. Rossetti, our administrator. Ms. Castro, our assistant administrator.
Present.
You, Mr. Panico, our consultant.
Present.
Ms. Vernassos, our recording secretary.
Present.
And Ms. Charbonneau, our stenographer.
Present.
Okay, Commissioner Onofrio, I'm doing roll call.
There he is.
I'm here, Commissioner Harger.
Thank you so much. For the record, Commissioner Laskos and Commissioner Tiki are not available for this evening's meeting. Couple of points before continuing with tonight's agenda. Mr. Rossetti will act as the Zoom meeting host. Commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting. And the chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized to make sure we're not all speaking over each other and to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. On the agenda this evening is a public hearing, and this is the protocol we will be following. Mr. Rossetti will indicate if any written comments were received from members of the public no later than 24 hours prior to the start of this evening's meeting to be read into the record. The commission can ask questions during the applicant's comments or at the conclusion of the comments, and applicant and the associates can answer the commission's questions at the time they are presented by the commission or at the conclusion of the comments. After the applicant's presentation has concluded, the chair will recognize those members of the public who have indicated they wish to address the commission. After the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak, the applicant's attorney and our associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. Public hearing remains open. The commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the commission feels the applicant and or his associates have answered all questions and have addressed all concerns from the commission and or public, the chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Commission can choose to discuss the application immediately following the close of the public hearing or at an upcoming commission meeting. In either case, the commission will be asked by the chair on how it wants to proceed. Okay, and if there are members of the public who do choose to speak at the point in the public hearing, when the chair asks for public comment, public is asked to note the following. Speaker order is as follows. Any elected officials of the city of Shelton that are attending in person, those elected officials participating via Zoom, and those elected officials participating via phone. Speakers, no matter their status, will be allowed 5 minutes to present comments. Next, we will hear from those present in the auditorium, and those names and addresses should be on the sign-up sheet on the table here in front of the room. Those participating via Zoom will need to use Zoom's raise your hand feature, and those participating via phone will need to dial *9 to be identified when asked by the chair. After you are identified by the Zoom host, please state and spell your name and your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when the minutes and transcript of the public hearing are being prepared. Please direct your comments and questions to the commission only, not to the applicant and or his associates. Comments from the public should address by specific criteria of the zoning regulations, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments previously presented. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. And I just want to note for the record that due to Commissioner Laskos and Commissioner Ticky not available for this evening's meeting, I am seating alternate Commissioner Anafrio in place of Commissioner Laskos and alternate Commissioner Donato in place of Commissioner Ticky. So our first agenda item is the opening of public hearing for application 2308, 390 Shelton Avenue. And Commissioner Amato, would you please read the public hearing notice?
Okay. Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Shelton, Connecticut hereby gives notice of a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. via Zoom and in person at the Shelton City Hall to consider the following. Initiation of application 23-08 Oak Hill Estates. Chris Russo, Esquire for B Wiz LLC at 390 Shelton Avenue, Assessor's Map 89, portion of Lot 29, for a planned development district to include 16 detached dwelling units with amenities. Residential buildings are proposed along a private road with each dwelling unit having direct access to the road. The plans titled Oak Hill Estates were prepared by J. Edwards and Associates LLC. The property is generally bound as follows: northerly by 376 Shelton Avenue, easterly by 274 Shelton Avenue, southerly by Ascot Village, westerly by 394-396 Shelton Avenue. All supporting material is on file in the Planning and Zoning Office and is available online through the Shelton Planning and Zoning website.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Amato. This application was accepted for review on April 12th. On the city's website is the application for a PDD, the statement of uses and standards, assorted site plans, building elevations, stormwater management plan, and a letter from an abutting property owner. Mr. Rossetti, were any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period for this application, but had not yet been posted to the city's website that we need to acknowledge for the record? Nothing. Okay. Is the applicant present? Okay, please identify yourself for the record and please proceed.
My name is Raymond Rizzio. I'm with the firm of Russo and Rizzio, and we're at 10 Southwood Hill Road in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I'm happy to be representing our client tonight with regard to the property at 390 Shelton Avenue. As you know, this as stated in the agenda, this property is up for an application to become a PDD. This is a very unique property. Also want to introduce Jason Edwards, who I believe hopefully has control of the map of the screen, who is our engineer, and he'll aid in taking us through these plans. This property is a very unique property. It's on 5.4 acres. It's basically surrounded by, there's a couple of single family homes, property owned to the, let's call it to the east or the south by the city of Shelton. Then there's about 400 units at Ascot Village, directly, let's call it to the southwest. The property, as you go up Shelton Avenue, as I said, is 5.4 acres. We're proposing a PDD. We believe we're eligible for that, as although it's not in a special development area, section 34.1 is pretty specifically clear that says in its purposes that it doesn't, if it's not an SDA or special development area, that the board may establish a PDD to accomplish a transition between single family residential use and an established non-residential area, and in accordance with the procedures hereunder. One of the other limitations is that it cannot be surrounded by single family homes, which this currently is not. As you know, the property behind us, which is owned by the city of Shelton, has been owned by the city of Shelton, has numerous basically water line easements and other easements. It is not a residential property. We believe you have a over 400, maybe 450 unit condominium complex directly abutting it. That this was the perfect transition area as you get to the single families directly to the north and across the street. One of the other qualifications is that there's not another zoning district available. And the district directly below us, as I said, we're asked at the villages, is a PRD. One of the limitations in becoming a PRD is it has to be at least 20 acres. In PDD, you have to be at least 5 acres. We're in an R1 zone. We believe that this is an excellent transitional use to go from where you have large multifamily project, city-owned non-residential property into what was basically a single-family area directly to the north of it, and then directly to what's called the northeast of it. So that, if you can see the property, I have a better, we'll give you each of the maps. One thing I think is important to show, and you can see where this property is, it's because there's a number of PDDs in the area. You don't mind if I'll hand these out?
No, go ahead.
With Alex for the members. Our properties in black. You will see the large
Mhm.
PRD around it. You'll see the city's property. You want an extra copy, Alex? Yeah.
And, Attorney Rizzo, when you go back to the podium, would you just please identify this document for the record?
This document is part of the GIS system, which shows basically the zoning, what the zoning designations there are in the immediate area. You can see this, we believe this, as you see this large PRD. There's currently about, I think, 70 PDDs in, maybe a little more, 70 PDDs in the town of Shelton. Some have been established in special development areas. Others have been established in accordance with the second qualification, meaning they're excellent opportunities. The commission has identified them as excellent opportunities to create a transitional area. If you can pull up our map there, Jason, which will show what we're proposing. So as you can see, we have a private road that we're proposing and 16-unit cluster home on a private road. So there'll be no city responsibilities for this road. It'll all be borne by the private individuals. So directly to where you can see the marker is, where Jason has the low, it's surrounded, as I said, from south and below. That's all Aspetuck Village. To the top of our subdivision, at the end of our cul-de-sac, and those units in the corner is property owned by the city of Shelton. You can see those large easements running through the area. I don't see it's really a landlocked piece. I don't see any way that property is never developed for any kind of residential use, which also helps it qualify for your second criteria as being a transition area. And then directly over to the north of our first couple of units are 2 single-family homes. We would agree to any kind of large buffer in the area. One of the first home, the second home though is a rear lot, which is called buffer. Jason, do you have a map that identifies the owner? There you go. So as you can see the overhead, you'll see that there's basically 2 homes directly to the north. There's a home to the south, and then the balance as you pull away, you would see Aspetuck Village. So we clearly believe we satisfy the requirement of the PDD. We think it's an excellent transition area. We think it's consistent with your plan of conservation and development in that it's promoting alternate types of housing. We like the transition area because it's detached, it'll be detached single-family homes versus going from a detached multifamily residential to below us back into the single-family area. We think this is an excellent transition. What we're proposing in our PDD is that these, as you know, they have to be over 5 acres. This is 5.42 acres or 236,000 square feet. The site will contain, as I said, 16 cluster homes. It also, one of the other general requirements is it's got to be consistent with the setbacks in the underlying R1 zone. We greatly exceed the setbacks, our maximum residential density. So in your PDDs, it states that they want to be consistent with the underlying bulk requirements. And resident maximum density in the R1 zone is 1 unit per 10,000 square feet. we would, if we use that in R1 zone, we typically would be available to up to 23 units. The minimum PV parcel is we exceed 200 square feet on 200 feet on Shelton Avenue. Like we said, we're also proposing no more than 2.5 stories. They're going to be nice. As they said, rather, 2,400, 2,600 square foot, single family detached residences. Setbacks will be from the public street will be 35 feet. It'll be 25 feet from the side and 20 feet from the rear. Our lot coverage is at 60%, which is less than you would see in an R1. We have and our floor area ratio is also less than would be proposed, which is at 0.80 than you see in a R1 standard.
Attorney Rizzi, I just want to confirm for the commission that those figures and statements that you just made are contained in the statement of
Yes.
uses.
So we have our statement of uses. I'm going to try and summarize. I don't think you want me reading 4 pages of it. I assume you've seen it. It's all consistent. The first page that we talk about is what, as I said, we're proposing these 16 single families. We're also, it will be a planned residential community, so that'll be basically a condo type operation where people will have to contribute to all the common areas, control the common areas, and control pavement of the road, snow plowing of the road.
So there'll be a homeowners
Homeowners
association?
association, governed by a homeowners
Mhm.
association. It's consistent with planned development, which I said is looking for alternate types of housing. You have people who want to downsize, people that want to move to Shelton, and this cluster type housing with less upkeep. It has been very popular, and I think has been extremely popular and done very well in Shelton. And I think it's people trying to move away from their 1 acre or 3 acre parcels to move into a smaller, downsize into a smaller unit in more of an established community. Permitted uses will be those buildings and uses facility of the city of Shelton, multifamily residential at a density of no more than 16 residential units. So this will be limited to this density, even though technically under R1, it's 1 per 10,000 square feet, you can be permitted 3 units.
Attorney Rizzo, can I just ask, have you looked at other complexes in Shelton and come up with a comparison of what this would be comparable to? When you were talking about downsizing and people getting away from the 1 acre, what equivalent
Well, I've seen them,
complexes do
not
we have?
necessarily in Shelton, but I've seen them, a number of them in Fairfield and Trumbull. They have a number of also age restricted communities that.
Yeah, that's very all well and good, but
Right.
I'd like to have some
No, I don't
information
have-
presented
I don't
about
have that for you
Shelton.
right now.
Okay,
But the national trend in your plan of conservation talks about looking for all different types of housing.
Mhm.
And we believe that this community, single family detached is consistent with your plan of conservation development and addresses the national trend and the trend that has been seen and very much desirable throughout Fairfield County. So as we talked about parcels, we talked about the stormwater management. I'll talk about the stormwater management and maintenance. What I'd like to do is have Jason tie in our proposed plan, take it through this is going to be also requirements from the city sewer, city water, which we have accessibility to both.
Mhm.
Jason, if you can take the commission through our plan, we can go from there.
Sure. For the record, Jason Edwards, principal at J. Edwards and Associates LLC, land surveyors and civil engineers. We're located at 227 Stepney Road in Easton. As Ray went through, this is the overall site plan overlaid on some aerial imagery. Here we have the existing conditions mapping, 5.42 acres. It contains currently contains a single family home and a detached garage. We abut Aspetuck Village condominiums, as Ray said. We do front on a state highway, so any of the proposed entrance would require an encroachment permit from DOT. They would also review sightlines and any other work that might be done out there related to the sewer or the utilities.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
For the, to clarify, could you explain the encroachment permit?
The encroachment permit is essentially your standard DOT permit. Any work you do within the state right of way, you go through the encroachment permit department. If you're over 200 parking spaces or 100,000 square feet, then you have to go before the OSTA Office of, I don't recall what that stands for, but it's the Traffic Administration Board. This would not apply to that because it's not big enough. So it's essentially the same process you'd go through for any curb cut on a state highway or any activity, proposed activity on a state highway.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So, and also we did acquire or obtain a wetlands approval for this plan earlier this year. This is just the overview of the layout. It is a proposed PDD, 16 new single-family homes. One key component, in my opinion, is that 3.73 acres of this are going to be undeveloped. So it does leave a large percentage of the property as technically open space, you could say. That's 68% of the parcel. The property is to be serviced by public water and public sewer, and the roadway will be private, as Ray indicated. So maintenance would be on the homeowners association, not the city. This is our grading and drainage plan, sheet 2.1. The road length, new road length is approximately 500 feet. We're proposing a collection system of catch basins and piping. They would discharge to 3 separate stormwater water quality treatment areas, and then they would be retained. We provide calculations in the drainage report. We have no increase in peak runoffs. We are all in compliance with the 2004 guidelines from DEP for stormwater management. And we have had a review from the city engineer as part of our wetlands application, and we met all of his comments, satisfied those.
Mr. Edwards, could you just clarify, how did you determine that there would be a net decrease in peak runoff?
If we pull up the stormwater report, do you want me to go into detail on the stormwater report, or it's part of our calculations? If you look in that report, we provide the calculations and then a table, and we have a net decrease. So what we do is we use software as well as formulas to essentially establish how long the water would take to leave the site under current conditions and how much of it there would be, and then we generate calculations to determine how long we need to retain that water, and there's guidelines for those calculations that we use that are provided by DEEP. So it's all in the stormwater management report.
And that's because you would be installing a system.
That's correct. Yes, there's underground retention chambers here. There's a stormwater basin here, a pond, and then another one here. And those all have individual outlets that overflow into the wetlands.
So you can't really compare a densely wooded area as it is now to what might be proposed with lawn area and some impervious surface and all that, because of the fact that you have to take in consideration that you are going to have a stormwater management system. And that's how you arrive at a decrease in the peak.
Yes,
runoff.
that's correct. Yes, exactly. You're correct. Yes, that's
All
right.
right. Attorney Rizzo, did you want to say something?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. I mean, currently there's no controls at all. It just sheet flows off the property. And
Yes,
with the
that's
system in place, there has to be zero runoff, and they have to retain whatever they create. So right now, as Chairman pointed out, there's nothing there. So you just have sheet flow off, and there's some steep grades here also. So if you can talk about the elevation trends, Jason, also from the street as you move back.
Okay. Commissioner Kelly had a question. I just wanted to confirm that the whole process of looking into this particular project and proposing it, your experts would have walked the property and
Yes.
looked at, and did they come across any of signs that there were things happening with water runoff that were
I'll just, I mean, Jason took it through the wetlands process and we have a full wetlands approval. Jason, you could talk about any issues that you encountered in walking the process.
Was that question directed to me? I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing you.
Okay, but Mr. Edwards, if you just hang on a minute, Commissioner Kelly wanted to point out something.
Yeah, Mr. Edwards, with the water runoff. What happens to the adjacent neighbors?
As it currently exists?
Currently to what will happen?
Okay,
Well, the intent is that there is no change in what impacts the neighbors. If anything, we should provide an improvement to any runoff issues that might exist that we didn't encounter. We didn't notice any, we didn't see any, but everything right now flows to this intermittent water course that passes through and then exits to this wetland. So we're directing all that water to the same intermittent water course at a lower volume and a lower rate than what's there currently. So I wouldn't anticipate any negative impacts for sure on any of the neighbors.
so if I'm to understand that correctly, you do not see any signs of something happening that needs to be taken care of. It's going to be, whatever the situation is now, it's going to be even better with the appropriate stormwater management system being installed.
Yes, correct. We're going to be directing the water to where it should be going. If it's going somewhere else that's disturbing a neighbor's property now, it would be, directed to the water course and into the wetlands.
Okay. Attorney Rizzo, did you want to comment on something?
No, I was just gonna say, and then also the water currently any water that's flowing there, Jason, is untreated, is that correct?
Yeah, to my knowledge, there's no treatment system on that property aside from the septic system. So, but that's not stormwater, obviously.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, again, these calculations that we're discussing, they have been reviewed by the city engineer. He provided comments during the wetlands review process, and we responded to all those. So they have been reviewed. We also have provided an erosion control plan, a sediment erosion control plan. This is designed in accordance with the 2002 DEP guidelines. We provide double silt fencing along boundaries and as well as the wetland corridor. We propose anti-tracking aprons at the construction entrance. We have 3 different stockpile areas identified, as well as temporary sediment basins, which act during construction. Those will collect surface runoff and hold them to prevent any sediment and erosion from leaving the site or entering the wetlands. And then we have diversion swales that we propose that feed into those temporary sediment basins. We also have detailed narratives and sequencing provided on our erosion detail sheet. I can pull those up and run through them if anybody wants to go through them, but they are a standard sequence. And again, they've been reviewed by the city engineer.
Okay, Mr. Edwards, on sheet 2.3, which is the soil erosion and control plan. On the left side, you have several bullet points. Those are the things that you just ran through. When do they start and when do they stop? And so some of those are going to be starting upon commencement of, you would propose starting those under the commencement of construction. But does all of this stay in place throughout construction and even afterwards?
It would, I mean, the perimeter silt fencing would most likely stay through the entire construction process. But there's going to be there's a sequence of construction provided on the erosion detail sheet that would instruct the contractor to follow a sequence we put on there, but they'd also be working with us to make sure that if any changes need to be made to that sequence, we would make field adjustments. But essentially all of this should be done when the site is cleared and stumped. Then the silt fence would go in prior to that, but the rest of the controls would all go in as construction commences, essentially. And then as they finish areas, they may eliminate components of it, but it would depend on some field conditions as well as the final construction sequence of the houses themselves.
Okay, what's the purpose of the tracking pads?
Tracking pads are, if you see on a construction site, they're a stone. You'll see like a stone apron at the end of them. The idea is they provide a rough surface that knocks the dirt off of tires, as well as it's a trap for any runoff that might come down the driveway. It'll get trapped into that rock apron.
Okay, so it's used as a control measure from a construction site onto a paved already existing roadway.
Exactly, so you don't get mud tracking down the street. That's essentially what it's
Mhm.
for, and then flowing into your drainage system.
Okay, could you explain what's the purpose of the stockpiles? How are they
Stockpiles
used?
are, if you go into a site, you're first probably going to strip all the topsoil off, so you would stockpile that in a large pile and keep it so that it could be used later on. You also may have stockpiles of other materials. If you've got stone for the road or something like that, they may store it somewhere. So we identify locations that we think would be ideal for that. Again, those could potentially adjust it through field visits with us during construction, but they're a pile, and then they're encircled with silt fence, so they're essentially they don't provide any or create any runoff issues during construction.
Okay, so at some point in time, there's going to be, the stockpile is going to be knocked down and that dirt and whatever used somewhere for landscaping?
They're not permanent, they're all just temporary, yes, so they would need to be either used on site, or they would have to move them to another site to.
Okay, Attorney Rizzo, you had a question?
You would have been more for the public, that when Jason mentioned that, stripping the topsoil, it's basically from the disturbed areas.
Mhm.
So rather than, what if you had to cart stone away or cart other types of materials, you just don't want to cart away the topsoil. So for example, where you're putting the roadway in, where you're digging the foundation, areas that are disturbed, you preserve the good topsoil and keep that to the side. This is not a topsoil stripping and selling operation. It's to be used
Yeah,
on site.
that's correct.
Not really more for the commission, it's just so the public understood, and Jason mentioned how we strip the topsoil.
Okay, and on the next bullet point, it says temporary SED, is that sedimentary?
Yes, temporary sediment basins. Those are these, they kind of look like a pond shape here. There's 1, 2, 3 of these. And those would be installed early on in construction as well. And they're used as temporary stormwater basins, essentially. So you'd have trenches that would feed water from certain areas that's disturbed into these basins, so that the water sits in those basins and lets the sediment settle out. We have a sequence on our detail sheet for cleaning those out, and they're sized. There's formulas we use to size those, which are over here on the side. They're designed to hold, I think, a 25-year storm. I may have to verify that, but I believe that's the size.
Supposed to be temporary, and those are supposed to be temporary.
Correct, yes. So we try to place them in the same areas that the permanent basins are going to go. So we clean as they build the new basin, they would clean out the temporary sediment basin and then install the permanent basin in the same location. So they're not digging 2 holes.
Okay, what's the change in elevation from one side of the property to the other? Is it quite an elevation change?
From the road back there, I can show you the profile. Hang on, I gotta look at my other sheet.
I know there's a profile shown on 3.2. Where
So this is the roadway profile. So you're going from elevation roughly 445 down to 415, 413. So that's a significant change from top to bottom, over 500 feet. But this does the road grade meets all city standards. It's actually less. We could go steeper and meet city standards, but we're less than 10%.
at what point, where's the 445? Is that by the road? The
No,
Shelton?
no, the high point is up on the top by the turnaround.
Oh, okay,
It's up
all
here.
right. Very good. Okay, what else do you have for us, Mr. Edwards?
A couple more slides here. So this site, as we mentioned, will be serviced by public sewers as well as public water. The water comes in from the rear, but the sewer will be coming down Shelton Avenue and tying in at the intersection of Shelton Avenue and Mailer Road. That's how you say it?
Mailer Avenue.
Mailer Avenue. So approximately 700 feet along the side. So you can see here, we're going to have a series of new manholes installed, and then it would tie in down to here. That's all within the Connecticut DOT right away. So that will all have to go through again, the encroachment permit process. They'll have to review that. As part of that, we'll have to provide traffic construction signage, all that sort of stuff to satisfy them. So it will be thoroughly vetted by them before it's approved. That's that. We do have a landscape plan. This was approved as part of the wetlands application. It provides buffers around the wetland areas, the brook in the middle, some plantings on the basins. I can go through details on this if anybody has questions, but it's relatively straightforward. We have a series of trees that follow the brook or what intermittent water course, and then planting shrubs and trees around this wetlands pocket and around the stormwater basins.
Okay, let me just ask Commissioner Motto, do you have any concerns about their plantings?
While you're asking that,
Plants here.
looking at that, could I ask a question?
Sure, Commissioner Motto is going to be looking at the list, and Commissioner Kelly has a question.
You mentioned the water coming in the back. How does it come in?
Excuse me. Actually, you can see it right here. There's a water main that runs through the city property in the rear. So we would
Oh, yeah.
there.
It's you can see it on 2.3.
Make sure you go over the top.
I can go back to the other sheet if it's easier. See here, this is the existing water main here, so we would be, getting a new easement here and tying into that water
Okay.
main, and then it comes through and back down the opposite direction of the sewer.
Well, his drawing is different than my drawing.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah, but he's not a different drawing.
but it's the same.
It's not all the drawings. I just stopped on that one. I'm sorry. There one in particular you want me to show it out, I can. But this is the utility plan, which is probably the right one to look at. There's the new water main called out, as well as the existing water main. And you can this water, the W line down through.
Okay, and that's in the back of the property or on the side of?
That's
Very
the
top.
Aspatuck Village condos are down here directly south. So this is the eastern side of the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show you the aerial image again if you would like to see that. So
Sure.
the water line comes through just about here. So we would be coming out this back of this and tying into it over here.
Mhm.
There's a right of way there?
There's a current right of way there, yes, for the water main.
Anything else, Commissioner Kelly?
The other utilities are all underground from 108 from Shelton Road.
Yes, that's correct.
Anything else?
Okay. Commissioner Motto, do you have any comments about the landscaping?
Yeah, the area that's, I guess you're calling it open space, the part that you're not developing, what is that butt up? It looks like it butts up against Aztec Village.
Paul Harrenstein.
So I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? You're talking about this area?
Disturbed area.
Yeah, the undisturbed area.
Yeah, that's gonna butt up, yes, a portion of that's gonna be on the Aspatuck Village, or the majority of it actually would be up against Aspatuck Village, yes, as well as there's a single family home to the west here as well.
You know what kind of plants are there now? What's that land
Well,
like?
it's up for it where you see the grade, you see that, if you see that grading plan as it
Yeah.
comes down, the rest of it remain undisturbed. Except for a little bit of drainage. Other than that, it's a pretty heavily wooded area.
Yeah, this is all wooded through here. I can maybe pull it.
Mature.
Yeah, we're talking about the
we're not proposing to remove any significant trees from over here. These trees with the X's on them are significant trees to be removed. And we are trying to maintain any trees in that area.
Jason, really quick, go back to the overhead, the overhead so you can see, Commissioner. You can see how heavily wooded that is. And Jason, you can show them about where our disturbance will end.
It's probably going to be somewhere in this neighborhood, if you can see my cursor.
That's about where the last of the grading ends. So you can see
Roughly,
it's a significant buffer. Commissioner Lund.
Yeah, I just wondered what's on there now. So.
Yeah, we're not, as shown on the plan, which is the mature trees that are going to be taken down, none of them are in that area abutting Aspetuck Village.
What's that blue little triangle that showed up on that?
That's just the designation of the, when you search for the address that comes on the map. It's-
Oh, okay. All right. So you have gone in and walked the property and identified certain trees to be saved?
Yeah, I mean, more or less, we identified the significant trees that were going to be removed, so the rest are to remain. You know,
But what's your,
want to keep as many as we
how
can.
are you qualifying what's significant? What do you mean that way?
I forget, there's over a certain diameter. I want to say it's even greater than 15 inches. We determined as significant. So there's probably smaller trees as well that'll go, but I'd have
Which
to,
have you
verify that number.
marked ones that would be retained?
I'm sorry, I talked over you. I apologize. What was that?
I was just wondering, have you marked trees that would be saved? Or you-
No, we have not marked trees that would be safe.
Okay, but the ones that you talk about in the area that would abut Aspetuck Village, that would be a heavily wooded abutment, area that would be maintained in its natural state as it is today?
Yes, that's per the plan. Yes, that's what's
Mhm.
intended.
Okay,
Jason, if you could just slip back, now that everybody understands where we were, just slip back to your grading plan. So you can see that, you'll see that last area where you have the striping close together is basically.
That's the limited disturbance essentially right there. And there is a protected wetland buffer there. So, we wouldn't be able to do anything beyond here.
okay. I'm just gonna ask Attorney Rizzo, could you repeat what you were saying?
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to show you where the grading, where all grading would end and everything else would remain undisturbed. If the commission would like, as a condition of approval, we could certainly put a conservation easement over all those undisturbed, over the undisturbed areas on the, let's call it the southern portion of the property.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Otherwise, who would own it? I mean, who would,
It's owned by the association,
so if you didn't,
and we could put a conservation easement on it that will even tell you that the association can't go and cut anything down.
Mhm.
And we have no issue with that.
Right.
This way you know that you're not gonna get any road person going out there and deciding he's gonna increase his view beyond what's already disturbed, or what we plan on disturbing. So we would have no problem granting a conservation easement to everything south of the disturbed area. Would you call it that south would be the safest way to say it, Jason? Yeah, south.
Yeah, I think so. Southwest, something like that. Yeah.
Southeast of the southwest of the
West.
disturbed area,
Mhm.
the graded areas.
So in effect, if a conservation easement was put on this, if this particular application was approved, that would mean that maybe someone who said, oh, I have too much shade coming in my house in the morning, I'm gonna go cut down a couple of those trees. That would prevent them from
Correct,
being able to touch anything.
exactly.
Okay,
supposedly. Yeah, we know about encroachment. on
yeah, for sure.
these areas, so,
That's why we have a CEO.
yeah.
But one of the things that you can also do, which we've seen many times, you can put outside that disturbed area, if the commission wanted, you could request a split rail fence foot.
Mhm.
Be put, so that would in effect deter anyone from going across. Now, I mean, there's a will, there's a way, but the more impediments and the more you make it unwelcome to someone, I think is the better chance at preservation. So we would agree to line the conservation easement with a split rail fence.
I think we did that on Long Hill.
Yeah, we haven't done
Yeah.
before.
Somewhere, I don't have that. Is there
Yeah.
any open space set aside proposed on this?
No, go ahead.
I mean, not technically, no, but it is all common ownership, so if it's not open space to be dedicated to anyone else, but it's not proposed to be developed, so if we're not showing it as developed on this plan, my understanding is that they wouldn't be able to develop it, they'd have to come back before you to request to develop it any further.
So the open space that borders this property, which is probably at where those on the, I guess, the right-hand side on the direction, where there's two houses down there. Is that where it borders open space?
The town open space, it would be, yeah, it would be to the, this area, if you can see my cursor, it's over here.
And is there a trail or anything there?
I do not know that answer.
So there's no matching up of any of this parcel to open space to make it contiguous?
No, not as currently proposed. I don't know that you'd get much. The only thing that may abut would be this little wetland pocket here. I don't know if it's worth it that the town would want to be responsible for maintaining that when the homeowners association is going to be the one, you know,
Well,
surrounded.
town's always looking to acquire open space that's contiguous to current open space.
Mm.
So that's-
I think here it's very much better as a buffer. I don't necessarily know that it connects to parkland or anything else. So that would draw back. And then, as I said, the protection to the houses, you have the buffered area up on the north, and then you also have that wetland area which can't be touched, which is between. Jason, you just want to circle that wetland area which is planted and disturbed and undisturbed.
Yeah, there's the wetland area here that you can't disturb on the west side, and then there's also one on the,
That's what I was talking about.
yeah.
Okay. Do you happen to have something where it shows this particular parcel with more property around it? Not so zoomed in?
I can show the aerial view. This
Yeah.
is the the city owned property here. That you know, butts us to the southeast.
Yeah, there's just on the GIS, you could see it where the property lines are, and then when you click on it, it shows you exactly who the owner is.
Yeah, that's,
So,
if you can see my screen, I've got, it's a different GIS, but it's,
mhm.
and it shows the,
Okay, that you clicked on is the borders change. So whose property is that right there?
this is City of Shelton property here.
Okay.
Yep, and then this is our property, and then, you
Mhm.
know, Spatuck has got, obviously, that they're a large parcel here. I don't think there's any dedicated open space as part of this. They may have restricted easements on there, but it's not dedicated open space.
Okay, I think we get a better perspective of how everything matches up.
What is the size of these houses that's proposed square footage wise?
If we got that, there's 20 allocation taken, they're basically 2,400, 2,270 and 2,500. So it's anywhere between 2,270 to 2,500 square feet. Jason, if we can bring up the elevations, which are toward the end, there's the floor plan. So it's basically, there's your floor plan, there'll be typically three bedrooms, 2-car garages, 2,270, and then Jason, the next unit, with unit 16 will be about 2,500 square feet. Well, this is not McMansion, this doesn't overpower the property. I think it's very consistent in size with the number of units per the acreage that is all.
What's the distance between the homes?
Jason, let's click back. I would think it's gotta be at least.
I think we tried to maintain a minimum of 25 feet.
25?
It's a minimum, yes, but the majority of them are greater than that. Like here, you've got probably 35 feet there. I can give you each one, but I don't know.
The minimum would be 25, and then I know some are upwards of 50 feet.
So most of the homes have pretty short driveways, at least from what I can gather on the site plan. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of excess parking or visitor parking, if you will. Having lived in a condo for 20 years, I'm very familiar with what happens when there's no visitor spots and people just start parking all over the roadway.
Well, each driveway has the ability to, each house will have a 2-car garage with room for 2 cars behind it. When this satisfies our parking requirements. We have some visitor parking in the cul-de-sac. I think there's 4 spots on the cul-de-sac and 4 spots on the way up. So about 12, at least 12 visitor parking. And also on that, it looks like right there, you have 2 more. There's about 14 visitor parking spots available. On top of basically 4 parking spots per unit, which is pretty significant.
So 3-bedroom home.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing, it's in one of the reasons, we didn't want the driveways too long. We're trying to minimize buffering, making sure that you get 4 cars, at least 2 in the house, 2 in the driveway. But then also not pushing in on open space, regulated area, buffered area. So this way, as you can see, very few homes are anywhere, first of all, they're all outside with the setbacks in an R1. And then very few of the 16 actually abut any other kind of residence. Maybe you have the first 2 on the right and the first 3 on the left, but after that, you don't have any homes that abut any other residences. So we think I thought it was an excellent plan, putting the circle in the front, basically putting the two circles in, which allow us to take advantage of the center of our property and not just run everything up the side against a residential area. And allow us to maintain, like I said, the R1 buffer, the R1 setback.
It's tight.
Yeah, so that, Jason, there's 14 visitor parking spaces.
It's tight.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Could you show where they are again?
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I missed
Yeah, there's 11.
11. I'm sorry, I double counted this one before, so yes, 11.
Jason, the paved roadway is 24 feet.
It's
I was just
actually
gonna-
26 feet, I believe.
Mhm.
Which is standard size of typical roadway, and in an instance where you didn't have much traffic, there certainly would be the ability of, if somebody had a party for people to park, but then not block the road, not block the road.
Mhm.
So
Typical
could you
parking
just review
spaces
the-
are 8 by 18.
Review the total acreage. It was 5.4 acres altogether, and did you or somebody say there's 3.73 acres that are undisturbed
3.73 remain undeveloped, yes,
of the 5.4?
of the 5.4.
Mhm.
So these 16 houses are on 2 acres.
1.67. 1.67.
1.67 acres.
1.67, yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of the clustering, homeowners association, the whole idea of a different type of housing where someone doesn't have to be responsible for maintenance. They don't have to be, it's a single family, in effect, attached without any of the maintenance of a traditional single family home.
Mhm. Do you have anything else for us, Mr. Rizzo?
No, as I said, Jason, I'm trying to think, we have one other thing. Oh, did you talk about traffic, Jason? We do need a. Unfortunately, but let's talk about the sight lines, Jason, real quick.
Yeah, there was, I believe, a question on the sightline that came from either a member of the public or the commission. I don't recall. But as I stated and Ray stated earlier, this is going to be an access point on a state highway, so that that entrance will be regulated and designed in conjunction with Connecticut DOT. So we have to take into account the stopping distances as directed by DOT. This road has a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour. We've been in contact with DOT staff somewhat informally, but enough to get their opinion. They won't look at these designs in detail until we have local approval, but they gave us the 85th percentile speed of 40 miles per hour, which is what they guided us to use for our sight distance. That's 445 feet is the requirement for passenger vehicle for that speed. So we on here, it's hard to see the road, the proposed roadway here, but you can see it in light gray. This purple represents the sight point where we would need to see from and traveling in each direction. And then the purple is the sight line in each direction. One thing that is a little bit unique here is there is an existing easement in place for sightline maintenance on the opposite side of the road. I believe that was acquired by the developer of Aspatuck Village back whenever that was done. I put a copy of the map that was filed to create that back in 1989. So what that means is that our sight line can go through that, the required sight line can pass through that easement, and the state maintains that easement to make sure there's sight lines through it. So in order for our sight line to work, it does cross that easement, but it then enters back into the right of way. So this would be approvable by DOT and their standards. I know that's a little bit complicated, so if anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Okay. All right, let me ask, Mr. Panico, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns that you want to relay at this time?
Not really. I would like to see a better delineation of what's considered open space as opposed to developable areas. The figures are a little bit misleading.
Okay.
Just to I guess clarify what that number is. This is what I had for numbers here. So what I'm counting as development in the statement is the houses and the roads and driveways. So pavement and roof areas. So,
Yeah, so
you're
treating front lawns, et cetera, as open space. I mean, yes, they're free from development, but in the traditional sense of open space, it's not quite the same.
It's not a, you're right. But as a definition of open space is generally an area that is preserved from development. That's at least the way that so I apologize if that was misleading, but I guess I was just trying to make the point that they can't get bigger houses. They can't, expand there. They can't put a pool there. It's restricted to what is proposed and approved here. It's not going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's identifying what's a more traditional open space and maybe those other residual areas that will not have any form of development on.
Yeah, and that's probably a good way to phrase it. So we can certainly provide that information if it's something the commission wants to see.
Just a little clarification, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, Commission, one of the other parcel that we talked about, which is on the southwest part of the property where we talked about possibly creating a conservation easement there that would remain as open space that could be bounded by a split rail fence if the commission so desired, as the same could happen with the wetlands, which is on the northern boundary. But you're right, and it's in essence, it's probably a true open space is probably closer to, would you say, an acre and a half, Jason?
Yeah, that's probably a reasonable number. Yeah, so you're
That traditional
actual
space,
open space.
3.7.
Okay, anything else before we move on?
Just a little bit of summary. I think we believe we satisfy your requirements under section 34.1. We believe this approval, this will be consistent with the plan after plan conservation and development, and that it will provide an alternate form of housing, which is much desired under the plan. And additionally, that this is an excellent transitional use between probably one of the highest density projects in the town, with 450 units, bounded also by non-residential city-owned property directly to the east, and give a excellent transition into what is a predominantly one-family residential to the north and across the street. For all those reasons, we respectfully request that the commission grant the PDD, and then along with that, adopt our statement of uses and regulatory standards for the PD. Be happy to answer any other questions the commission have. I assume everybody here is not to support this application, so you'll probably hear from me again.
Absolutely.
Was this just
Madam Chairman?
zone change and conceptual?
Hold on, Mr. Panico. Commissioner Parkins has a question.
Is
Okay.
this just a zone change and conceptual design? This isn't final site detailed design, correct?
Yes, this is the come back for detailed design approval. The PDD has to be approved first, statement.
So it's just conceptual.
Okay, Mr. Panico?
I was just curious if the applicant was going to explain the implementation of the plan. Is it going to be developed by a single developer, or are they going to be selling home sites off, or what's proposed?
The intention is for the developer to construct and build, it not be sold like a traditional subdivision. It's going to be built in accordance with the look and the standards that we have, that we propose with regard to the elevations. And it's intended to be a for sale product.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't, the acoustics are not great. Could you run through that one more time? Or maybe one of the,
Yeah, it's intended to be a for sale product, with the one developer developing the units in accordance with the elevations, and floor plans that have been submitted. This will not be, sold off like a traditional subdivision where you could sell multi-unit lots. What you're gonna have to do is literally declare a, condominium, and then they have to be sold, and plans are put into the association package and sold as such. So the homeowners association, traditional one developer type project.
I would think the commission would be more comfortable with a single developer developing according to some preset plans, rather than wondering about what an individual purchaser of a site might be in terms of what they'd want to build. We would have to have more stringent architectural controls.
And Mr. Panico, what'll happen is you form an association, and the association then file the declaration. The developer, the declarant proposes the rules, proposes the elevation, declares the units. These will be units that are declared as part of an association and built in accordance with the plans that are recorded in accordance with the declaration. So it'll all be binding and run with the land. And no matter who touched it, they have to accept the terms of the declaration that the developer set forth.
Okay, so you're going to preset the architectural styles then?
Okay.
Yeah, this is not we're not looking to establish a PDD and then sell off individual lots as a traditional subdivision. This is going to be a well-controlled homeowners association, developed by a single declarant, and then managed by a single homeowners association in accordance with rules that are adopted and recorded on the land records.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on now to the public portion, and we'll start out with any. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Donato.
I'm concerned about the water. Water coming in, you're saying that, you're gonna get from the city. Also, I see roads and I see driveways. And we've already established that now the land is going to be less than. What does that mean as far as runoff? Now, you're telling me that you set it up so that you can catch the runoff and it's going to be better than the existing natural land that's there now,
Correct.
undeveloped land, that you can make it better.
You know what I'll do is let me have Jason take you through. He can probably even show you where the catch basins are anticipated to be in the road, so that the water gets collected, has to be detained, and we cannot. We have to treat and retain water and not increase the water on, and prove it to your engineering department that we don't increase any water runoff from our site that will currently exist. But what we do is you manage it through grading, and the roadways are managed through catch basins, and then taking it into stormwater system and stormwater system. So Jason, why don't you summarize for the commissioner what your stormwater system is, how it works, where the catch basins are, and how everything's collected, and why you feel we're controlling and treating the water much better than currently exists.
How about the rooftops?
Is that?
Doing it much better than Mother Nature is. doing.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, and Mr. Panico just asked, what about the rooftops? Runoff from the,
the rooftops will go into, go,
so Mr. Edwards, you want to go through that?
yes.
Sure. So as Ray said, we have a series of catch basins and piping. So the road flows, the top of the hill is obviously where the water is going to flow from. So we have a roadway that's got has curbs. The grading directs the runoff into the roadway. The roadway then graded towards these catch basins, which are the rectangular drains that you see on the side of the road. So this area here would drain into this catch basin. This area here drains to this catch basin, and so on, you know, as we continue down. The roof drains for all the buildings are routed to go into the pipe network. So you've got these RD lines here, they go into this catch basin. This
Okay.
roof would go into this catch basin. In the sense of a PDD allows you to do that, and we size our entire site detention system, including these areas. Whereas if you had a single family residential subdivision, each lot would be responsible for its own water, and they'd have to put in retention systems on each lot. In this situation, we're able to account for it all in the overall design, which provides more continuity and better continuity and more strength to the calculations that we provide for the overall stormwater design.
Are all of the buildings provided with footing drains? I see a few of them.
Yeah, they all should be, yes. Now
Okay.
those will discharge out to surface generally, but that's groundwater, so it's not needed to be retained. So our just to continue on, this section up here on the top of the hill comes to a final termination point here in this upper basin. This basin is behind buildings 5 and 6 up at the top of the cul-de-sac. That'll discharge here, and it'll be retained for a 100-year storm. So or retained, sorry, detained, yes, detained. And we install a control outlet here that lets the flow out as we calculate it. So it restricts the flow and doesn't let it all come gushing out of here. It releases it slowly in an attempt to match what the natural flow would be. So that would then flow in and feed this wetland on the high side. We then continue down the road and we cross over this existing intermittent water course with a pipe that the water course would pass through. We then have another set of catch basins down here near unit 16. So all the runoff from the circle down to here flows to these catch basins. And again, these roof drains are piped either into the catch basins or directly into the stormwater basin. But this set of basins then overflows or flows out to a manhole, and that manhole discharges to this second level basin here. This basin again has an outlet control structure, which controls the flow out, and flow is restricted and then discharged out to this wetland here where it flows naturally. And then we have one more set of catch basins down at the very bottom. Connecticut DOT will not allow us to discharge water from new impervious surfaces into the right of way. So we capture that water at this set of catch basins and put it to an underground retention system. And then that also flows back out and discharges back to the same wetland. So we are maintaining all existing natural flow patterns on the site. So the water flows into this water course or into this wetland and then exits the site the same as it does now.
Inland Wetlands has approved this plan?
They have, yes. And
Okay.
it has been reviewed thoroughly by the town engineer. He had comments that we responded to as part of the wetlands review. So it has been reviewed and approved.
What's the elevation right now where the turnaround would be? Is that an elevated
That's
part of the property
currently
right now?
Elevation 446. I believe we were gonna be around, I gotta look back at the profile. Call what we said. Apologize. So the new turnaround is gonna be close to the same grade that we're at now. We're gonna have, you can see on the profile here, this heavy line is the existing grade. And
Yep.
and then this kind of smooth line here is the proposed grade. So we'll have a cut, a little bit of a cut at the top, and then an area that needs to be filled in the middle, and then down at the bottom will be more of a cut. So we try to balance out the cuts and fills, so we don't have a massive import or export required to build the road.
Okay.
Will the pair of basins at the very end of the new drive against Shelton Avenue, will they collect any Shelton Avenue drainage at all?
No, we're required to create a high point there, so the
Good.
Shelton Ave
Okay.
drainage is going to continue down the shoulder, or the gutter, I should say. And our water won't go past that, and their water won't come into ours.
Okay, that's fine.
I have
Okay.
one question.
Commissioner Kelly has a question?
At this point, do you know about the degree of blasting that will have to happen?
No, we do not. I'm sure there will be some, but we haven't. To my knowledge, they haven't done any soil borings or anything more than we did test pits for the drainage systems to ensure that we had enough soil to create them. And there was definitely rock out there, but no, I do not know what a quantity of blasting would be.
And any blasting, at least for the public, commission will probably know, is managed by the fire marshal.
Mhm.
Need to be a pre-blast survey of all surrounding properties, and anybody who does the blasting needs to provide certificates of insurance to the town.
Check with the neighbors, so on and so.
Yeah, I was just trying to, I understand the commission know that, but I thought I would, whenever people hear blasting, everybody's.
Exactly.
ears would go. And that there is a whole,
It's a whole process.
that whole process, safeguarding process implemented by the town and overseen by the town. Whenever such blasting occurs.
Okay. All right, Mr. Panico, any final comments, questions, or concerns?
Not at this time. No, thank you.
Okay, any final comments, questions, or concerns from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to start the public portion, and as I started to say, we're going to start out with any elected officials of the city that might be present here in the auditorium. I don't see any names on the list. Is there anyone here that's an elected official? No. Okay, if there are any elected officials that are listening in via Zoom or on the phone, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone to be identified. Are you coming across anybody, Mr. Rossetti?
Yeah.
Oh, you do have one?
Yeah.
Okay. And who is that, please? Oh, okay, he's not, he's an appointed official to the Conservation Commission. No, he's not elected. Okay, all right, so now we're gonna go back here in the auditorium for members of the public. First one is Attorney Michael Leventhal. So Attorney Leventhal, you can come up to the podium, or you can have a seat here at the desk.
Before I begin, can you confirm that you do have the letter I submitted yesterday in timely fashion?
Yes, it was posted to the city's website.
That's part of the record,
Yep,
correct?
yes, it is. The only thing I would say is the application number wasn't stated correctly. It's not 2830, it's 2308. So you might want to change that.
My name is Michael Leventhal, I'm an attorney. My office is at 30 Huntington Street in Shelton.
Mhm.
I'm also a resident of Aspen Village, I'd like you know that, but I am representing Gloria Green.
Mhm.
She's the owner of 394 Shelton Avenue, property of the subject property at 390 Shelton Avenue to its immediate south. And she is opposing the application for a map change from R1 residential to a planned development. That, just, can we just clarify, that is the only issue before the commission this evening is the map change application, is that correct?
It is a zone change.
Well, it's also called the map change, zone
Yeah,
change.
we refer to as zone.
Is that the only issue before the commission?
Yeah, as far as we've been advised.
Okay, so a lot of time was spent asking about the plans, which my understanding are conceptual, purely conceptual at this juncture.
Mhm.
My argument is a legal argument as to the inappropriateness of this application. The subject property, 390 Shelton Avenue, is owned by Mark Moretti, Mayor of Shelton. It's within the R1 district. It's improved by single-family residents, and it's completely surrounded by single-family residential zones. 374 Shelton Avenue and 376 Shelton Avenue abut this property to its immediate north. 394 and 396 Shelton Avenue abut the property to its immediate south. They're all single-family residences in the R1 district. On the westerly side of Shelton Avenue, across the street from the subject, it is also an R1 district, and that would be 371, 375, and 391 Shelton Avenue. The zoning map appears to show a part of that area on the westerly side of Shelton Avenue to be CRD 10, which is a conservation residential district. It's shaded in blue on my zoning map. Directly to the southeast of the subject is that association, which is a planned residential district. And it's designated on the zoning map as PRD 1.
Mhm.
PRD is residential. Appleton Village consists of 455 single-family units, not multifamily units, as was represented in the letter that Attorney Chris wrote over in the commission in connection with this application of the single-family units. So there is no non-residential area issue here. Section 34 of your regulations provides that the PDD may only be established by the commission within a special development area, an SDA, as delineated on the zoning map, which is not the case here, or to accomplish a transition between single-family residential use and an established non-residential area. That is also not the case. The properties in the R1 district is surrounded by residential areas. The PDD, the whole conception, the basis for creating these PDDs was to create a transition between single-family residential zones and an established non-residential area, not from residential to residential, which is what this application seeks to do. There's no transition required from residential to residential. And that's not the basis of the regulation. There's no transition required from Aspetuck Village to this 16-home subdivision, which they really, now they want to shoehorn into what appears to be 1.5 acres. That's surrounded by other single-family residences. Now, this applicant to make part of the record, I'm gonna give you the GIS printout of the property.
Mhm.
If you're ready, I will not speak through the microphone, I know it won't be picked up, so. With the GIS. Everything in yellow
Mhm.
is R1. Have extra copies if you need them.
Yeah, but for the other commission. Is anyone- is there anyone else? Okay. You need any more down there?
This same applicant.
Attorney Leventhal, just for the record, please identify the document that you're referring
has
to.
the, GIS printout with the zoning overlay that I printed out from the GIS website, Town of Shelton GIS. So it's got the zoning overlay on it. You can click on the zoning overlay when you go to the GIS.
Mhm.
The same applicant, B-Wiz, has another open petition for a map change for property 435 River Road.
What does that have to do with this
Well,
application?
it's to show you an example of how that application is more appropriate for a PDD than this one. That application.
I'm gonna have to interrupt you, Attorney Leventhal. You have to speak to the merits of this application.
Well, I believe
And
the-
what are the positives and negatives of this particular application? Just because the person in town that is associated with this particular application has another one existing right now.
Because that application is one in which the property is in a commercial zone that abuts a residential zone.
Mhm.
That's what the regulation was designed for, not this. You've got two residential areas where you've got a property completely surrounded by residential.
I think the problem that I'm having with it is that you're being site specific. If you were to present this in general, I think it would be more appropriate. But I don't believe that that's appropriate for you to compare the same developer having two different projects in
It
town.
could be any developer, I'm just saying.
Mhm.
that the reason for promulgating this regulation was to provide a transition between a non-residential and a residential. For example,
Mhm.
Downtown Shelton, where you're converting old factories into properties that can be residential properties, not for this. 34.1 regulation provides that PDD is not allowed on any site or parcel that is entirely surrounded by single-family residential zoning, and it shall not be used when an alternative conventional zoning district is available.
Mhm.
This property is in an R1 district. It permits ordinary residential development, including the subdivision under 33.11 of the regs. They can apply for a subdivision. They wouldn't be able to get as many homes into it, but they would be limited to 6, not 16. And that's why they're attempting the zone change. The other thing I want to bring up is, again, my argument, 34.5 provides the petition for establishment of the PDD shall, it's mandatory, be submitted to the commission in writing and shall be signed by the owner. This petition is not signed by the owner. It is the market rate. Nor is there any indication that the owner authorized the applicant to make the application in this application. That's the thrust of my argument. It's pretty much a legal argument. I'm sure there will be other people who will talk to you about the condition of the property and things of that nature. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Leventhal.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you, on your map here, I think this is the subject, can you just indicate on here which lots have R1, have houses on them?
This is my client's property here.
Okay.
This is R1 here. This is R1, and this is R1.
And how about across the
These are
street?
all R1.
Yeah, okay.
I have the zoning map, I have it. if you
That's
like
good.
it. No.
Thanks.
Commissioner Harder,
Go ahead, Commissioner
referred to
Perkins.
Aspetuck as being single-family dwellings. I believe
correct.
that several of them are connected. Is that incorrect?
They are connected.
So that would be considered a multi-family dwelling unit.
Actually not. My understanding is a multifamily dwelling unit is one in which one building, more than 6 family members reside. If you look in your regs, they define family. They are connected units, but they are single family residences.
Single-family residence, but a multi-family dwellings.
No, not multifamily. Multifamily would
By
mean
zoning, they're multifamily.
they're not multifamily.
Tony, can you,
I will ask, Mr. Panico, do you want to, comment on that, Mr. Panico? You developed the regulations.
By the Shelton zoning regulation, dwellings containing 3 or more dwelling units are not single-family units. It's a single-family dwelling is a single-family dwelling. A multifamily dwelling is a multifamily dwelling. The dwelling is the shell or the total building in which is then occupied by units. If it's occupied by a single unit, then it's a single-family dwelling. If it's occupied by multiple units, it is a multiple family dwelling.
May I speak?
Go ahead, Attorney
These
Leventhal.
are the Aspetuck Village properties are connected. that each unit is owned by individuals or families. They are taxed separately. They are not multifamily dwellings. I beg to differ with the commissioner. A multifamily dwelling would be one where in one building, you had several apartments within that one structure. That's not the case here. You have connected single-family units.
I would simply refer the attorney to the zoning regulations where he can read it for himself.
Okay. Any other commissioner?
But I will say that it's still residential.
That's right.
It's still residential, even if you consider a multifamily.
Mhm.
It is still residential, and the regulation was not, there's no requirement to transition from residential to residential, which is what this applicant is attempting to do.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
calling it what it is. It's a multifamily dwelling.
But they're still residential.
Yes, they are
Yeah.
residential. I'm not arguing that point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any final comments, questions, or concerns from the commission before we move on to the others on the public hearing? Okay. Okay, so now we have John Vicurio. Come on up to the audience, the podium rather, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's John Mercurio. I live at 136 Running Brook in Aspetuck. And I do have a couple of questions initially about what PDDs are and what PRD ones are and all that, but I heard from Michael
Mhm.
that I guess you guys are, or somebody was attempting to do a zoning change. So now that I understand that, one of the things that I heard from Attorney Russo was that the property was owned by Shelton. And then I just heard the property was owned by Mark, the mayor. Right? It's like, no, who owns the property?
Okay, I'm gonna just clarify for yourself and for anyone else that's gonna come up. Just state all your questions if you have questions, and then they will be responded to, okay?
Okay, that's great.
Okay,
And the other thing I heard from you, Virginia,
Mhm.
was that the site was gonna be in the natural state as it is today. Well, I don't know if it's part of your responsibility, the commissioners, to walk the property, but there's like mountains, like ledge and stone on this piece of property. So if it's gonna stay the natural state, how do you put 16 houses on top of stone? Just a question.
Mhm.
Because if that's not your responsibility to go out and look at the land, then I can understand, but there's certainly gonna be a lot of blasting there. So my third question is that part of our condo association has a road called Fox Run. To the back of those condos is this mountain that's probably 80 feet high. So if we're gonna blast, or whoever's gonna blast, my question to you folks is, do we have to do anything as property owners, like take pictures of our foundations and our roofs and our sidewalks that we just put in and all of that and roads, so that somewhere along the line, if things happen, that we come to you folks and say, hey, what's the story? Well, the story is that this is gonna be a private association, and we're a private association, and you folks are gonna say, battle it out. So my question to you is, as the attorney Larissa said, that the fire department and everybody else is gonna come out and tell us what to do. Well, what is it on us? What do we do
Mhm.
to ensure that we're okay?
Mhm.
And then I think one of the last pieces that I'm concerned about is in the condo in Aspetuck, we have feeder streams, we have wetlands, we have rivers, and we have ponds. So if all of a sudden we're blasting and we're disturbing some of those streams and some of those underground reservoirs, and all of a sudden there's reaction at the condo. The brooks no longer run, or the brooks overflow, or there's all of those issues that come up. What do we do? And I think that's my last question.
okay, thank you very much.
Do I get an answer now, or are you gonna send?
No, we would wait till everybody speaks and then the attorney can address all the different questions. Rather than us go back and forth, back and forth. That's more efficient. Thank you very much. Next is Daniel Christensen.
You don't mind, I'm gonna sit. from the standpoint of.
Sure. You have to move that microphone down, or you're more than welcome to come and sit down here because this will pick up your voice. Okay, good,
How's that?
Okay.
good.
All right, my name is Daniel Christensen. My wife Lori and I live at 394 Shelton Avenue. And currently are with 375 feet bordering this proposed development, we are have the longest property line that's affected.
Mhm.
In the initial presentation, 394, 396, which used to be our house, neither one of those were discussed. They talked about north, they talked about west. This is all part of SPZC. Well, we are right next to this property, and I just want to make sure that that the board is clear on that. There are two other houses that weren't brought up by the attorney representing the developer. One of the words that came to mind when this first started coming out was this proposed development was the word carpetbagger. Carpetbagger is always a negative word, implying or accusing someone of exploiting a situation for personal gain, purchasing a single family home in an R1 zone, and then pursuing the creation of a special zone change to accommodate a 16-home subdivision without regard to the abutting property owners and City of Shelton open space, which is part of this. You had mentioned, you had asked about open space. There is open space that borders this. So there is a possibility of part of this property, which used to be 4.9 acres, and I believe 0.5 acres, that part of that could be transitioned or sold if so desired. And in doing this, proposing doing this, to me, in the mind of some people, may elevate the developers to the Carpetbaggers Club.
Mr. Christensen, please direct your comments to the merits of the application,
Understood.
not to the
Understood.
personalities involved with this. Thank you.
Call it like they see it. It is refreshing that after years of speculating with my neighbors regarding the mayor's plans for the property, that we finally have a clearer sense of public official number one's intention, which is to apply to change the existing R1 zone in place and replace with a planned development district, which will have, as discussed, 16 homes placed on plus or minus less than 3 acres. I think if I did the math, it was 1.67. I think that the engineer may have been a little fuzzy. 3 point something was mentioned, but 16 homes on 3 acres in what is an R1 zone. You know, I'm not sure how that benefits anybody. Having built and resided in my current home for over 25 years, I have a fairly good understanding of the area. The proposed development is fronted by a section of Shelton Avenue, which is a state road that is notorious for vehicle accidents, specifically in front of this property. And I yet to see a traffic study relative to the safe transition of future homeowners from the proposed private road onto the state road. I respond to car accidents in front of my house, in front of this property, at least a half dozen times a year that I'm around. Fortunately, nobody's been killed in the roughly 33 years that I've lived. Used to live at 396, now I'm at 394. I see no DOT paperwork relative to sight lines, although the map shows it, but what the map doesn't show, it shows a line on a map. It doesn't show the curvature of the road. Part of the reason there are accidents is people coming up the road, lock up their brakes, whatever, because there's a sharp bend in the road. And I've stood in the middle of the road waving to people with a flashlight. And many times during an accident, trying to manage it to help the police, these people are right on top of me before they even brake. So question the sight lines. Looking through the paperwork on the proposal, I see no formal engineering plan. I don't know if this has been reviewed by an engineer. Initially, when I found out about this, I contacted Ron Baya. I know not sure if I'm presenting that properly.
Mhm.
He initially told me nothing is happening right away. It's getting reviewed by engineering due to the extensive blasting involved. Not really clear how, maybe a little blasting. You know, I used to work in Basking Ridge. I know what blasting looks like. I know what you gotta do for blasting. I was an assistant site supervisor. You basically shoot them out. Okay, that's gonna affect us, that's gonna affect me. I'm on a well. My neighbors are on wells. Natural feature states, which is, I guess, 34.3.8. When reasonably prudent and feasible, development proposals shall make reasonable attempts to adapt to existing topography and natural site features. Again, knowing the site, I don't know if anybody here has been out there. You're welcome to come by at any time. I can show you from my rock wall, again, what the site looks like in its natural state. And you can imagine what the blasting is gonna do to it. They question the number of the statements on the proposal currently in front of the board. The first is part 3B. It is in close proximity to other high-density residential use. Kind of wonder where, which one? I'm not aware. Again, I've been here for 33 years. Which high-density residential use is this? Is it bordering? Further, part of the 3D states will act as a buffer from dense planned residential district and vacant land to the nearby single-family neighborhood. I am currently bordered by Shelton Avenue in the front, 2 residential single-family homes, and the woods and wetlands directly behind my home that provide my family with a beautiful and more adequate buffer from the Aspetuck Village community. While researching a proposal, which is complicated by the incomplete planning and zoning website, I came across an article within the Shelton Herald from December 22nd, 2014, which was written by Brad Durrell. Title of the article are PDD zoning rules being misused in Shelton. The Shelton Conservation Commission's position noted in the article states that the PDD mechanism is being misused in Shelton, particularly with regards to high-density developments, 16 houses on less than 3 acres. Do the math. The PDD mechanism was meant to be used for office parks, shopping centers, commercial areas, and should never be used in residential zones, according to the position statement by the Shelton Conservation Commission. Expanding on that, Frank Ozak, once a planning and zoning commission alternate, who is largely credited with being one of the architects of preparing Shelton for successful corporate development along Route 8, were once said during an informal discussion with other planning and zoning members at the time, you're really stretching it. You're kind of allowing them every place. You people are having a problem telling people no. I encourage you to tell this developer no. I'm really concerned about the process. I would say Frank was a wise man. Further, on June 30th, 2017, a guide for appropriate residential development appears to have been submitted by Rick Schultz, who I know was active in the zoning department for a while, for actually many years, representing the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission to update the 2006 plan of conservation and development with what appears to be an adopted 2017 update. States, eliminate the use of PDDs in residential districts and replace with another appropriate zoning technique to accommodate alternative development forms. Interesting. I would say, some would say that's prudent. One additional note, as I'm finishing up, or question that I have for the record is, where is the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to reviewing the planned development districts and related planning and zoning regulations that was started with a meeting January 29, 2019? Has anything been done with that? Maybe that would avoid stuff like this. I mean, it seems like we're going back many, many years. Shelton has evolved. We've all benefited from it. Finally, I also came across an interesting quote in an article from the May 2nd, 2016 Shelton Herald, written by Aaron Berkowitz. The quote, "Nobody likes when they feel like the developments are infringing upon their backyards." I repeat, nobody likes when they feel like the developments are infringing upon their backyards. Mark Loretta. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Next is Carol Julian. Use the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Carol Julian. I live at Aspetuck Village at 208 Fox Run. My father was in the civil business for many years in Bridgeport, and I used to assist him. Going out on site and dealing with permits and so on, so I had some issues with the site that's being proposed under development. I also am an engineer by trade. First of all, I walked the whole property, the whole back of that property and over on the Shelton Road. The reason why they can't put septic in there is because it's solid ledge. Ledge and bedrock are two different things. Bedrock can be easily removed sometimes without blasting. Ledge has to be blasted. The reason why they can't get a permit to put in a septic system for that development is because of the ledge. That means that the drainage is affected. Stormwater, I haven't seen any of the maps show a good drainage plan at all. None. Basins are temporary while you're excavating. Those aren't going to be there forever. They can't be. My concern is with the following. Where's the stormwater going? It goes into a drain. And Aspetuck Village, we're connected to the Bronson Country Club. It goes through their aquifer system via wetlands, easements that were given many years ago. We are loaded with wetlands at Aspetuck Village. Matter of fact, one of the maps showed very close to our border on Deer Run, where they were proposing something to us that was rejected. It almost abuts our property line. That's all wetlands back there, and I'd be glad to show you anytime and walk you through that and see when we have a heavy rain, how much water is collected currently by what is currently a residential area. We're almost at maximum capacity in some cases. We have an antiquated system. We've been there a long time, and probably at some point the wetlands have to be dredged or some of that debris taken out. This is all something that we all need to be concerned about, because not only are we being affected, you're affecting people downstream from us. And the Bronson Country Club and those residential areas as well, where all those things go. The conservation easement, I'm not familiar with that, that's something new. The best conservation easement I can think of is to reject this proposal. And it doesn't cost anything. The maps aren't clear, they're not detailed. There's some things on it that are wrong on those slides that I had written a mail to Mr. Rossetti about, and so in going to Aspetuck Village, which is not happening because we rejected it. And I'm very, very concerned about cutting down trees in that area right now with the way the wetlands are very fragile. And I don't even live near here, where I live on Fox Run, on the other side where I'm connected to Bronson Country Club. Okay? And I've gone down there myself and cleaned up the wetlands. We're gonna have a real problem. Not just me, but the county with lawsuits and delays and other things. So I beg you to not let this happen. This is not the highest and best use of this property. It should be a one residence there with a septic system, acceptable septic system put there. It makes no sense to put 16 units on 2 acres. Just think of it. This makes no sense. And I think it's a detriment to the town, to our city, and should be totally rejected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Roger, may I just ask, you have a lot of people signed up. I'm just wondering.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 others.
Okay, I was gonna say, we might want to consider limiting
Mhm.
time just so that everybody gets a chance to speak without having.
Yeah,
to
I've been
come back.
clocking. That was less than 5 minutes.
Okay,
It was,
okay, thank you.
so,
I don't want
Okay.
to cut anybody short. but
I know.
I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak too.
absolutely. Next person on the list is Dean Cothra.
Dean Crocker at 376 Shelton Avenue. I think this should stay in R1 zone. It's ridiculous for a change. You do not have a sight line going up the hill from where the proposed road goes in. It's just not gonna work out too cool. Better take a good look at this. Thank you. I look around and I do not see the property owner here or the major developer.
They don't have to be. They're represented by council.
He wouldn't be. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Cothra. Okay, next on the list is Charles Brzezowski.
Excuse me, my apologies to the board. I thought that was an
Independence, okay,
And I signed myself, you might be on stage.
that's fine.
My apologies.
No apology necessary. Is that, next person is Sandra, that's,
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the same, right.
all right, and next is Frank Parda.
You can bring the microphone up.
Yeah, put on the podium.
I'm a resident also of
Just, sir, identify yourself for the record.
Frank Carter, 387 Woodridge.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm impressed that many of the people have said here, even the developers, very impressive. My question is, have any preliminary traffic safety studies been done? I'm gonna say maybe no. I think that at the local level, that's something that should be done, because as you know, if you do grant permission for a zone change, the application goes through, it's gonna be a state-run thing, and I realize it's a state highway. However, our police, our safety people will have to deal with all the potential mistakes that could be made with allowing this to go through. The other thing is the internal roadway of this development is pretty tight. I noticed in one of the cul-de-sacs circle, coming into the southern portion, that the road appears to be less than 90-degree turn. I would also think that this commission would be wise to get the fire marshal and the safety people involved for, access to the homes during emergencies. I don't really like this proposal. I think it's too tight, too dense. No matter how you look at it. It's a small piece of property for all those homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Parda. Next on the list is Sherry Parda.
Every part of 387 Woodridge. Just want to let you know, before we moved to Aspetuck, we were in a development in Seymour, Oxford area.
Mhm.
And they did dynamite, they blasted, and it's not a fun thing, and I really don't want to go through it again. And I think that this is not the place for these houses to be. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Next on the list is, Tony Napolitano.
Good evening, Tony Napolitano, I'm a resident of Aspect Village.
Mhm.
192 Stonehenge. And most of the things that people have already talked about were my concerns, but one of the things I'd like to see is the overview of the existing condition site plan that was up on the screen. If you can put that up there for us. There was one of the projections that was shown, existing site plan conditions, we have it up.
Tony, could you do me a favor and speak closer to the mic? Okay, you were asking for
The
something,
existing site plan conditions that was up on the screen when the
Okay.
presentation.
okay, Mr. Edwards, are you with us?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Is,
That's not the one. It's
Yeah,
set up.
I'm getting, okay, I'm getting there.
I think he's got to flip through the pages.
You said the existing plan,
Says right on it, existing site plan conditions.
this one here?
Yeah, that's it then.
Okay,
Many of the things that people already talked about, the stormwater system located directly along the northern boundary of Aspect Village. I mean, it's right on our boundary. What would that impact be on our property per se? Again, people talked about the ledge blasting. Anybody that lives in the village knows that there's considerable amount of ledge. And there's specifically behind, the southern boundary of that piece, there's all kinds of ledge there. So we're all concerned about the blasting and the impact it's gonna have on our properties. Blasting it, we talked about as far as the traffic flow. Has the state, Department of Transportation, given us any information as far as, traffic counts in the area at this point? We don't know anything about that.
you just ask your questions and then,
That's what I'm asking.
yeah, that's
Have
what
they
we're putting
supplied
on.
that?
Mhm.
Okay, so my concern is if you look at the overview, the site plan in front of you, and we've already discussed it, there's a sharp bend just before the northwest boundary of the property, considerable bend. The amount of traffic flow on, Shelton Avenue, Route 8 is extensive. And unfortunately, well, we all know, people don't travel the speed limits. I can see that as being a concern exiting on to Route 108 from this parcel around that steep bend. There's gonna be 16 more people exiting and entering that roadway. And I consider it to be a hazard. I mean, has the DOA provided any guidance with this at this point? Because the town, the city could make their own decision, but after all said and done, the Department of Transportation has the final say. So do we have any information from the Department of Transportation yet on this site?
Just ask the questions and just keep going.
That's it. That's my
Okay, that's
question.
it? Okay. Is that everything?
Yeah, we don't have any information?
No, I'm not answering the question. I'm just telling you the
Yeah, that's it.
procedure is for you to come up to the podium, ask all your questions, and then after all the members of the public speak, then the applicant can answer those questions.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all?
That's it.
Okay. And last person on the list is Ludwig Spinelli.
Good evening, Commissioners. As a former alderman, and former alternate to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I oppose this proposal for several reasons you've already heard. It's very dangerous. Could you imagine trying to make a left-hand turn coming out of a private road going towards Huntington Center? As you know, there's a traffic light at Mailer and Shelton Road. I used to live on Mailer, so I know it quite well. I don't want to see another traffic light if it does get approved. I think it would be prudent, and I can't see how it could be approved. There are many reasons why this should be rejected. One of the most important ones is the approval by the inland wetlands in December of last year. I contend that it was improperly done. The applicant, Mayor Mark Loretti, never applied properly for it. It's a conflict of interest. He appoints the inland and wetland commissioners, and it certainly smacks of cronyism and improper transparency. So on that alone, it should be denied. The PDD is nothing more than spot zoning. I have come before you many times asking you to make the revision that Rick Schultz and others, Frank Ozak and others have suggested. The PDD is nothing more than spot zoning, and it's going to detract. I feel sorry for the folks that live right abutting the property. It should be rejected. And just imagine, where are you going to put the snow on this very small parcel? You get a good snowstorm. I don't know how people are going to navigate it. Imagine a party. If someone wants to have a party or graduation activity. There's not enough parking. The 11 spaces just don't cut it for 16 homes. You figure everyone's going to, it's a 2-car garage. There's going to be at least 32 cars, maybe more. It has too many negatives. It should be rejected. And I'm sure that the commission will do its due diligence in rejecting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spinelli. Okay, last call for anybody in the auditorium that wants to speak. All right, we will move on to,
I don't want to come on. Who's keeping the notes? This gentleman?
We all are. We
Okay,
all
so
are.
there's
But
gonna be
they,
some kind of-
Mr. Rizzo, we're not ready for you yet.
There's gonna be some kind of documentation and everything.
Yes, we have minutes that get prepared. Okay, so we are done with those that are here in the auditorium, so we're going to check to see if there's anyone participating via Zoom that wants to speak. If you are participating via Zoom, or then use Zoom's raise your hand feature to be identified. And if you are using a phone, you would dial *9 so that we could identify you. So Mr. Rossetti. Okay, we have one person participating via Zoom, is it?
There's gonna be a couple, but Tom first.
Okay, so the first person is Tom Harbinson. Identify yourself for the record, please, and go ahead.
Sure. Tom Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive, Shelton, Connecticut. I am going to be very rapid in reading my letter to get under your time limit, but here goes. The Planning and Zoning Commission application 2308 has been submitted on 2023, April 6th for petition for a planned development district. I feel this inappropriate given the parcel's location on Shelton's zoning map in conjunction with reference to Shelton zoning regulations. I note the following. The first item in the application, statement of uses and standards for the proposed district, states that this planned development district is established in accordance with the provisions of section 34 of the Shelton zoning regulations. This is immediately incorrect with the first portion of the Shelton sections 34 regulations. Shelton zoning regulations sections 34.1 states the intent of the PD district, and that, quote, PD districts may only be established in the following locations. A, within a special development area delineated on the official zoning map by the Planning and Zoning Commission and encompassing identified areas for which the commission has engaged in detailed land use analysis and for which the commission has formulated a long-range plan of proposed land use. To date, those areas include the downtown area, the delineated coastal area in the vicinity of Pine Rock Park, other portions of River Road characterized by established non-residential areas, and the entire Route 8 Bridgeport Avenue corridor extending to and including the adjacent city-owned former Moss property. And B, on property abutting and or adjacent to an established non-residential area for the purpose of accommodation, proposed use and development that will provide an effective transition in land use and buffer to the adjacent residential neighborhood. Such PDs must be limited to use such as those typically authorized as special exception uses in residential zones as set forth in Use Schedule A, to appropriate mixed-use developments and or to accommodate alternative residential development forms such as attached units and or clustered homes. PD districts shall not be allowed on any site or parcel that is entirely surrounded by single-family residential zones. It shall not be used when an alternative conventional zoning district is available. Subject parcel map 89 lot 29 is entirely in an R1 zone. Abutting to the north is R1 zone with 2 residential home parcels exceeding 1.5 acres each. Adjacent to the west across Shelton Avenue are several homes parcels in an R1 zone. Abutting to the south is a PRD1 of the residential condominiums known as Aspatuck Village. Abutting to the east is a City of Shelton public open space dedication of 22 acres from 1991. The nearest non-residential zone is the CA2 area of Huntington Center which is 3,416 feet, approximately 0.65 miles from the subject parcel. That is not abutting, adjacent, nor nearby. The nearest PDD zone is PDD 34A, which is 5,094 feet, approximately 0.96 miles away on Lake Road, just north of Nels Rock Road intersection with Route 108. This factual measurement via the city's website is a far different representation than the statement in the applicant's narrative letter of April 12th that it, quote, it is also down the street from other PDDs on Shelton Avenue. The presenter stated tonight that they will, quote, stockpile, quote, resources and reference that they will strip the topsoil and other earth materials to reutilize in finishing the site. This can also be referred to as moonscaping or denuding the site of all environmental features unique to the location. What stone walls exist? Are there any specimen trees on the site? This is a very specific term, specimen trees, which would be known by a licensed landscape architect making a presentation. And it is not a non-defined term of, quote, significant tree as referenced by the presenter tonight. And where he has said that no trees have been tagged nor identified as such. Was a study of the site even done for this? This is in close proximity to the special scientific features and historic elements in the Shelton Lakes Greenway open space that this abuts on one border. There are elements in the Shelton Lakes Greenway that are on the state inventory of historic reference. Specifically, I reference an area owned by George Cam, who purchased land in 1790 and where there are still existing Native American ceremony stone structures on site. Prior to George Cam's ownership, the Conservation Commission has identified documents showing a Mary Cam in Derby, identified as an Indian squaw in 1763, 27 years before George Cam bought this property. It has been established that the area was used by local Native Americans, specifically the tribal gathering area of the Cam family. A listing of such locations is not published readily by the Conservation Commission, though it can be requested in order to protect these historic sites from being raided for elements such as arrowheads and other historic artifacts. Has a natural resource survey been conducted on this parcel? I would suggest that such a report be submitted by the applicant. I want to be emphatic that I am not representing myself as an application for the Conservation Commission. I'm representing myself personally because this application has not been referred to the Conservation Commission for commentary, despite the petition being received or submitted over 2 months ago on April 6th per the city's website. Be that a miss or an oversight, it is extremely disappointing that I have to keep track of P&Z agendas personally to catch these applications being on an agenda, then removed from agendas, and I am personally annoyed that this item tonight listed as opening a public hearing, discussion, and possible action, implying that I need to react before the commission I have served on for 25 years has an opportunity to provide input. It is disappointing that Commissioner Parkins tonight is asking about where the city open space is located, what trails may exist, and other questions that could have been answered by an advisory commentary letter from the Conservation Commission. Please refer to your subdivision regulations 4-19-3 referrals. The commission shall refer for review and comment any subdivision plan and proposal for the provision of open space land to the Conservation Commissioner. The presenter tonight stated that he wasn't sure if there was an open space dedication from Aspetuck when asked about an open space dedication within their development. It took me all of 2 minutes on the city's website while this presentation was being conducted to confirm that the 22.035 acre parcel of dedicated city open space came from James Vargas, developer of Aspetuck Village, on 1991, September 13th, via Book 1028, page 1 on the city land records, where I will quote from that recording. Quote, the property is to be used for open space purposes of the city of Shelton. Said open space shall, unless otherwise approved by the express written consent of the Board of Aldermen and the Planning and Zoning Commission of the city of Shelton pursuant to section 824 of the Connecticut General Statutes, A, be kept and held by the city for its assignees for their enjoyment, use, and benefit by any residents of the city of Shelton. B, be kept and preserved in a natural.
Mr. Harbinson. Mr. Harbinson, you have been muted. You are well over 6.5 minutes. So if you can wrap up, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, just take a second here. If you can wrap up, we will re-enter you into the meeting, okay? But before you do, take a breath and just slow down a bit, okay?
Yeah, it's really
All
hard
right.
to understand. You're going so fast. It's really hard to comprehend.
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience,
I know.
no comments. Okay,
I
go ahead.
appreciate them actually submitting it in writing because we
Yeah.
can read it.
All right, Al, can you put him back on?
My apologies.
Okay, you're good to go.
seeing
Go
on the
ahead.
agenda that you were going to take action tonight and having
Yeah,
not received
Mr.
it
Harbison,
for 3 months.
Mr.
I
Harbison, that's
will-
the standard language that we put on agendas. If you go back, you will see that on many occasions, okay? So we haven't even finished a public hearing yet. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Harbison.
I think it better to submit this in writing, and I will
Okay.
email it to each commissioner so that they get it in writing. Thank you very much for your time. Good night.
Very good, and it will be posted on the city's website so that any other member of the public would like to read it, okay?
Disgusting. Thank you.
Quiet, please. All right, who else from the participating via Zoom? Or by phone? Do you have a name?
It's John's iPad.
All right, the person that's being identified remotely as John's iPad, would you please identify yourself for the record? Is he muted?
He's coming.
Okay.
He's not gonna say the same thing.
That's his call. All right. Do you have it?
Going slowly.
Okay. Was he in the waiting room? Before?
He's gonna unmute.
Okay, sir, if you're John's iPad, please unmute yourself and begin. You have 5 minutes. You got a little technical difficulty here. Are there others waiting?
Good. Ask one more time.
Yeah,
No one else.
no. We're gonna give the gentleman that indicated he wanted to speak another couple of seconds to unmute. But if there's anyone else participating remotely, either by Zoom or by phone, that would like to make comments to the commission, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 to be identified. Is he still there?
Don't say anything.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna move on, and I would recommend that the gentleman or whoever it is from John's iPad, if you want to submit something in writing to the office. Okay, so no other members remotely? Okay. Okay, so would the applicant like to respond this evening?
Sure.
Okay.
A few things to answer. We start with Mr. Leventhal's comments about, and I think it goes leads into Mr. Hardison's with regard to the applicability of section 34.1. If you look at the purpose, so the intent talks about different requirements. But when you get to the purpose, which specifically states that it may only be established by a commission within a SDA delineated in a zone map, or to accomplish a tradition between single-family residential use and an established non-residential area, and in accordance with procedures specified. And that "or" is extremely important, which I will give commissioners copy of.
I have a copy.
Sure, you don't hear from me, I just, you want to highlight it for you. I know you probably have seen this once or twice. So,
Gonna put this on the website?
I mean, the whole aspect of village thing, that there are, once you get, is a multifamily project, it's advertised as a multifamily project, there are apartments, there are buildings connected. The fact whether it's a duplex, two connected, once you get beyond, I think Mr. Panico, I will rely on his expertise and his reading of your zoning regulations, as he stated that, Atherton Village is not a single family residential property. It is, they're clear, there are units attached, but it's a different type of multifamily, whether you have an attached multifamily or multifamily in one building. These are multifamily buildings. That PDD is a zone change. It is no longer just a traditional R1 zone. It is zoned for multifamily residences. Additionally, we are property owned by city of Shelton to our east. So we are clearly not surrounded by single family residential. We have two, Jason, if you could bring up the map and bring up the existing map so we can show the couple homes that are there. Basically, we have 3 residences, I believe, single-family residents that happen to abut the 5 acres, which is actually a very small portion. Jason, if you could highlight our property. And I believe that Mr. Christensen's property directly to the south, which you can see, and then you have Mr. Cothra's, and there's one other property directly to the north. Those are the basically the 3.
There's 4.
It's 5.
There's
1, 2.
At least.
No, you have 1, 2, 2.
Sir, we do not have a conversation at this point in time. We will give you a chance.
We are not surrounded by single-family residences. A good bulk of the properties surrounding our project are zoned multifamily through its PDD, and also property of the city of Shelton. I think we have, and I think the board has recognized this in other situations which were not in SDA. For example, a property that was in Huntington, I think on Ripton Road, where I think there was a church project where where PDD was granted because it was a transitional area, similar type to exactly what was proposed here. Our project, I had some other questions, but I think it's, if you talk to lean on Mr. Panico, the property to the south of us, Aspetop Village, is not a single family residential zone. That is what is permitted. Properties that are entirely surrounded by single family. You can see how many units are attached. Those are classic multi-family units. That is not single family residences. Okay, so we clearly do not have an issue with the requirement that our property is surrounded by single family residences, because it clearly isn't as stated by Mr. Panic. There was also a question about blasting. Actually, there was a lot of concerns about blasting. Once again, this is a PDD. The town engineering department, the town fire marshal, what is required is a pre-blast survey be done by any adjoining properties by an insured blasting contractor who must make application through the fire marshal. They then basically go out to all houses if the people will let them in and videotape and photograph all the homes, look for every crack, because what happens is all of these contractors are backed by insurance companies, and they want to know that if that crack was there before or after the blasting, who's going to pay for it. It's also that there's not just this free blasting that occurs anymore. They're done in the fire marshal, the contractor require that they're done in very small blasts. They're typically covered, and blasting can take a lot longer than usual. Somebody talked about free blasting where people just blast away a mountain. That no longer happens. It happens in very small areas. It happens in cities. It happens all over the country. The technology has been established to protect any adjoining property owners. And keep in mind, the insurance companies have a very vested interest in making sure it's done as safely as possible, not to impact any property owners. So there is a whole procedure that a contractor has to go through that protects any adjoining landowners. Mr. Christensen talked about that there's not a high density development abutting him, but as I said, I don't know, probably one of the highest density projects in town is Aspetop Village when you look at the size of it and the extent of its multifamily. Mr. Parda talked about the street and the ability to get in and out. We have to go to the state. This is controlled by the state. 16 units will not change the level of service. It will not require a light. They have to do an extended traffic study to get the encroachment permit to permit this project to go forward with the state of Connecticut. Mr. Edwards has previously showed the sight lines. I didn't think that the public was aware that there is a sightline easements that exists, so that the sightline easements of 441 feet, which is in excess of about a football field and a third, is how far your sightlines are when you're coming in or exiting the property up or down Shelton Avenue. You can just pull that up again, Jason, just to show the sightlines. and then show exactly, if you can highlight where that sightline easement exists. Oh, one other thing, we are agents also for Mr. Loretti. We have signed the application as his attorney. That application, copy of it is here, copy's been submitted, you're signed both the applicant, Mr. Griffin is with us tonight, and we're signed as the attorney for Mr. Loretti. Necessary, if the commission would like to have a specific letter from Mr. Loretti authorizing me to sign the application, I have no problem with providing. I don't think that is an issue at all. And as I said, we've signed it on his behalf. So the other thing with regard to snow shelves, there's plenty of areas. Jason, you there still?
Yes, I'm here. I'm so.
Show some areas. Snow.
We haven't identified, oh, I lost my plan. We haven't identified any specific snow shelf areas, but you have a large shoulder on the side of this road, and the road is 28 feet wide, so it's far wider than, you know, well, like the minimum in town is 28 or 30, but oftentimes they permit a 26-foot wide road in Shelton, so we're actually, you know, wider than typical. And there is areas to push the snow on each parcel. You can plow like you would a standard driveway, where you would plow it onto the side of your driveway.
But it's onto the lawns or the front lawns as you go up and down the private drive.
Yeah.
And that goes for the roadway. It would end up as the town. Keep in mind, when the town plows any street, it ends up on your front lawns. Same exact thing would happen here. This is not an area where you have like an office building or anything else where you're parking on top of parking or parking fields. This is no different than a public street, except that it's owned privately and maintained privately, plowed privately, and repaired privately. All in all, I don't think the issue of traffic is an issue. It's a state road. We cannot, someone asked about what kind of information the state is providing. We cannot apply to the state for encroachment permit without an approval in hand. State doesn't want to look at proposals. The state only looks at approvals. So once that is only the first step. If we cannot demonstrate to the state after conducting a traffic study that we can safely enter and exit Shelton onto Shelton Avenue from this private road, we will not be granted an encroachment permit. I have to show that all the sightline easements are in effect, and all the sightlines can be accommodated. And as I said, that is under the state's jurisdiction. We can't go there to provide that, and then we can look at any really make a decision on the information until approval's in place. All in all, we think this is the perfect spot for a transition. We kept, as you say, except for Jason, if you just quickly pull up the of our plan showing 16 homes. We have done the best we could to pull them up.
Are you guys seeing my screen?
All we see is the GIS map.
Okay, hang on, let me just stop it and restart the share here. I apologize. I had been putting slides up. I thought they were coming through. Do you see the?
As you can see, you have 3 homes as you come up to the north. You have really 1 home, 1.5 homes, maybe that abut. Not even one of them, maybe 1 home that abuts to the south. Which would be no different than if you had a traditional subdivision. All the other homes are well buffered from any other residences that surround. So if you can see to the north, the houses are probably a good 50 feet off the property line. Our houses, as we go further up into the subdivision, are close to 50 feet off the property line. And then as you can see, as you get up into the circular area, we don't come close to any residential properties. This is about as well buffered a development as you could have. It serves as an excellent transition from this very high intense development, Aspetuck Village, into a cluster home type development, into onward, onward to the north, which would be single family residences. We believe we satisfy the requirements of section 34.1, that PDD is appropriate here, and we respectfully request that you grant this application. We'd be happy to provide the commission with any other further information that they would like. And then we thank you for your time and patience.
Okay, any further questions, comments, or concerns from the commission for the applicant?
I just have one question.
Commissioner Kelly, go ahead.
Seeing that there was controversy on traffic, why wasn't the traffic study submitted?
Well, typically in a zone change application, you don't. I mean, and especially then when you have a state road, because it's governed by the state. I will tell you, I mean, we've done 16 homes on a 5-acre parcel will never change the level of service. Well, I mean, you're talking maybe four to six cars an hour.
I understand that, but it seemed to be a point of contention. That's why I asked.
And if it were a traditional subdivision application, yes, and not just a zone change, but in this instance, and then on top of that, when you add the fact that it's a state road where the state has total control over, and that's where the safety has to be demonstrated. That's where the level of service has to be determined. The level of service won't change, and that there would be no negative impact on any of the roadways. This is very, as relates to traffic impact and development, this would be considered a pretty minor application, especially as to the amount of traffic on 390. I mean, on Shelton Ave.
I think there is still a
People think
question
it sounds like a lot of cars, but it's really not.
It's not
I mean-
that, it's the.
Commissioner Amato?
Yeah, I'd say there's no light, there's a light at Aspetuck.
Right.
So
I will
think
tell you,
there's a
16
different
cars will never,
situation.
the state will make a determination on.
Oh, I know, I'm not saying there should be a light, I'm just
Yeah.
saying
Yeah,
there's
no.
gonna be an issue with cars
Yeah, I
coming
think-
out at that site,
Adding 16
because there
units.
is not going to be a light.
Yeah, adding 16 units, the state would never say that it would warrant a light.
No, I'm not saying that it should,
And I think
I
you're
don't think
talking
that's
at the
what
most,
we're getting
not what I'm getting at, right?
you're talking probably at the most, 4 to 8 cars an hour. I mean, this is not gonna change the traffic flow. It's not gonna make it any more
I
dangerous.
understand that, and I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm just saying it's it's gonna be a danger there for those residents on that street, because there won't be a traffic light. And there is a traffic light at Aspetuck,
well,
because it's needed there, apparently. The state decided it's needed there.
based on the sight lines and based on,
Well,
Yeah, that's why you put there.
that light is Aspetuck's light.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commission? Mr. Panico, do you have any final questions or comments? Is he, with us? He might have muted.
I got kicked off before.
No, he's.
You there? Okay. Is he muted?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there. Mr. Panico? All right, well, we'll move on. So,
I just say something,
Commissioner Donato?
I just want to say,
Sorry.
any addition affects traffic. Any addition.
You're right.
Rush off 16 with all the school buses that go down that way and all the traffic that I often
you're right.
find over there. 16 houses, don't ever brush it off.
I'm not brushing it
You
off.
you said 16 houses are not going to affect the
I
traffic
said,
flow.
what I said, not to change the level, is what's called the level of service. And every car, every car is one more car added to a traffic light.
Okay.
You have a stop sign here, and the drivers are gonna have to proceed, safely and carefully. But the sight lines that are in place, and some of it ends up happening to be enforcement. I mean, you've got a speed limit, and then you've got the speed that people travel. So, yes, I mean, but when it comes to the state looking at levels of service, they would think that this would be.
I understand what you're saying, the state looking at the level of service. People living in the area, dealing with the level of service changes. But the state sees and what the people see two different.
Right, I understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Panico, I think you started speaking. Do you have any comments, questions, or concerns for the applicant before we move on? You won't? Okay, all right, Mr. Panico is not in the area to answer, so how's the commission want to continue on this or handle this particular application? Do you want to continue the public hearing or close it?
I have, can we get some legal advice on that
I think
before
we should
0.1?
continue.
Okay.
And I thought we could organize a little site walk maybe.
All right, so is there a motion to continue the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion to continue the public hearing for application 2308 from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Amato has seconded. Any discussion before I do a roll call? Okay, so on the motion to continue the public hearing made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Amato. Commissioner Parkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Donato.
Staying.
You're gonna abstain?
Thanks, Shane.
Well, you're sitting for
Okay,
Commissioner Ticky, so you're a legitimate full member of the board tonight.
okay. We'll proceed with,
So you're an aye?
yeah.
An aye to continue, okay. All right, and then Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Onofrio,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion has been approved by a vote of 6-0 to continue the public hearing. So this continuation, the public hearing will be on the agenda in an upcoming meeting. And if the applicant submits any new material, the public will be permitted to present comments on that, on those items.
Chairman, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
So there's no more, in the event we don't submit any additional materials, there'll be no more testimony permitted from either side, and the commission basically can do their walk, seek counsel, and, testimony from.
Yeah, we would have maybe comments as Commissioner Amato asked for a legal opinion.
Okay.
And we may have, maybe it's also a good idea to keep public hearing open, because if we do that site walk, and we have questions that come up with having to do with how the site is engineered and everything.
Okay, we'll be here.
Okay,
Do you know what the date of that hearing?
no,
You'll let us know.
no, we only have 2 meetings in July and 2 meetings in August, so I don't think there's gonna be anything realistically. Not before the end of July, maybe the second meeting in July, which is what date do we choose? I don't have it at the top of my head.
I don't either about my schedule.
Yeah,
Jenny, could I interrupt for 1 second?
sure, Mr. Pianico, what would you like to say?
I need to leave the meeting. My wife has a bit of a problem. I have to help her with it.
Not a problem.
I'm
Okay, thank
sorry.
you. Not a problem, Mr. Pianico. So we have the resolution for our next agenda item that you would be reading, so we'll take that over, okay?
Unless you want to go ahead and consider it, if a question comes up, that's different, but
Okay.
it's up to you.
All right, no, you go ahead and take care of
I'm
it.
awfully sorry.
Not a problem, Mr. Panico.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Yeah. And just want to advise members of the audience that if the application portion of the agenda is over and done with for tonight, we will not be doing anything. The public hearing is still open, so you are welcome to leave. We will not be taking any action on this particular application.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sir?
Now, when you have your site walk.
No. No, and the rules are that the commission cannot even talk to each other during the site walk. Yeah. No,
So you're going for observation.
that's the suggestion tonight. We would have to work with staff to see when we could set it up, and it's up to each commissioner. It's not mandatory that they attend. Okay?
You take any visual review.
Yeah, or staff,
Zoning staff.
yeah. So, we would have questions individually, we could, ask staff to pass it along to, somebody on the city staff.
Last question,
Sure.
when you reopen the hearing at your next meeting, the schedule, will the public be allowed to speak?
As I said at the end of this, only if the applicant has submitted new material, that is what you would be able to comment on. You can submit anything to the city in writing, send it to Mr. Rossetti, it would be posted. It would become part of the record.
Because even if the attorney didn't address every concern.
We can jot it down and submit it to Mr. Rossetti. Okay? All right, so we are gonna move on to our next item on the agenda, which is. Good night. Application 2214 S&G of Shelton LLC at 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue. Assessors map 91 lot 17 on 1.91 acres in an RBD zone for a PDD. An initial development plan approval for 43 apartments with on-site parking. This is, okay. Public hearing for this application closed on January 18th of 2023. After discussion of the proposal on May 10th, the commission authorized staff to prepare a favorable resolution, which was sent earlier today to the commission for their review.
Is this the one that Tony's sent?
The one that I compared the two, I didn't see any change.
Oh,
I think the emails crossed.
yeah.
So,
Well, I have the latest one here, if you want
yeah, I have it here as
to
well.
read it.
So let me just wait for Mr. Rossetti come back in. So, you know what, let's take about a 4-minute recess, okay?
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
You have to stretch our legs. Ooh. Ow.
Are you taking a break?
Oh, yeah, we're in recess for a couple minutes.
Yeah, we're gonna go milk cookies.
Wish.
Thank you.
Well, my dear, right? We'll get it back and I'll be right back.
All right, we're back from our recess and we're going to move on to old business application 2214 S&G of Shelton LLC. Public hearing for this application closed on January 18th, 2023. After discussion of the proposal on May 10th, the commission authorized staff to prepare a favorable resolution, which was sent to the commission earlier today for review. I'm going to ask Mr. Rossetti to read the resolution, and I'd ask the commission to hold any questions until the end, when I'll ask for a motion to move the resolution for discussion.
Like Tony left, we got 12 leaves here.
Yeah, right.
All right. Application 2214 petition of S&G Shelton for approval of initial development plans and adaptation of PDD for a residential rental apartment and related parking at 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue.
Can you put it up on the screen, please?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
I didn't catch that. Yep.
On the next one.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
but
got it right here. Sorry about that. Meant to do that. Okay. Related parking at 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue. Currently zoned residence business district development within the restricted business development district within the Route 8 corridor special development area overlay. The petitioner proposes to establish a PDD on 1.2 acres to submit and to 1.2 acre site to accommodate a 3 1/2 story 43 unit residential rental apartment building. The site has limited frontage on the westerly side of Old Bridgeport Avenue and extensive frontage on the north side of Sunwood Drive, a private road. It encompasses a significant portion of the right of way of Sunwood Drive and has an easement for driveway purposes for access and egress over the balance of Sunwood Drive, extending to the Old Bridgeport Avenue right of way line. The total site extends along Sunwood Drive for a distance of approximately 500 feet from Old Bridgeport Avenue. Abutting the westerly line is the Sunwood condos. The site is in a transitional position adjacent to the Sunwood condominiums, the Sutter Chalizi Post number 16 American Legion property, and other mixed single-family residential uses on the north and eastern sides, with approved apartments to the south. The property is currently occupied by an existing house and former parking lots for the prior restaurant use across Sunwood Drive. The site is characterized by variable topography that rises up gently. Old Bridgeport Avenue is impacted by the water course identified as barriers throughout the road, crossing diagonally through the shallow portion of the site in the vicinity of Old Bridgeport Avenue. The site then slopes sharply upward along the Sunwood condominium property line, and there is a small proposed wetlands mitigation area in the shallow portion of the site near Old Bridgeport Avenue. The recently approved Brookview 2, a 30-unit apartment building, is directly across from the subject site. The property is currently owned by the applicant. The applicant originally proposed 43 residential units in a building having 2 stories on the westerly facade and 3 stories on the easterly side, Old Bridgeport Avenue facade, in an attempt to adapt to the natural grade changes of the site. Unit mix consisted of 19 one-bedroom units and 24 studio units. On-site parking for a total of 67 cars was shown, distributed to the left and to the right of the building. Access to the site is provided by 2 driveway entry exits from Sunwood Drive, one serving the upper parking lot and the other serving the lower parking area. As a result of site topo, site grading, excavation, and possible rock removal will be necessary, primarily in the westerly portion of the site. No test pits or other soil information have been provided to determine the extent of rock removal anticipated. Delineated in the wetlands on the site have minimal impact on site development, limited only to the easterly portion of the site. The maximum building height as modified is approximately 36 feet on the westerly side and about 46 feet on the easterly side. Initial development plans were submitted for the proposal, modified in between public hearing sessions in response to commission concerns, accompanied by a statement of uses and standards. That initial plans are entitled, quote, proposed apartments 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue, Shelton, Connecticut, prepared for S&G of Shelton LLC, end quote. Prepared by Rose Teeson Company LLC, architects, surveyors, engineers, dated February 8, 2022, and including site plans and architectural drawings of the building and site. Also submitted was a site engineering design report prepared by Rose Teeson Company, dated February 24th, 2022, and a traffic study prepared by SLR International Corporation, dated October 17th, 2022. The commission convened a duly noticed public hearing on July 20th, 2022, which hearing was continued on October 19th and November 30th, 2022, and completed on January 18th, 2023. During said hearings, the commission made several inquiries and raised concerns relative to proposed density, unit mix, affordable housing set aside, required parking, open space components, rubbish disposal, parking lot impacts on the easterly side property line, and the overall intensity of the proposal in general. 4 members of the public offered comments focused primarily on parking adequacy, proposed density, traffic, and the importance of preserving the adequacy of Sunwood Drive to serve the needs of the condo residents. The applicant confirmed that a traffic analysis was under study and would be addressed at the continuation of the public hearing. At the final hearing on January 18th, 2023, further revised plans were presented and reviewed with the commission in an attempt to address outstanding commission comments. Questions and concerns were addressed by the applicant and his representatives, who noted that any additional concerns of the commission, city engineer, and others, including blasting issues, can and will be considered more fully for the satisfaction of the commission, the city engineer, and all other responsible boards and commissions during the preparation of final detailed development plans. The applicant noted that approval of the Inland Wetlands Commission and the fire marshal have been obtained and reported that sanitary sewer service is available in Sunwood Drive, but that no formal approval from WPCA has been received as yet. The traffic assessment of the proposal based on the initial 43 unit proposal with 67 parking spaces was prepared by SLR, dated October 17th, 2022, and submitted. Said report concluded that the proposal, quote, will have no perceptible traffic operations impacts to Sunwood Drive, Old Bridgeport Ave, and Bridgeport Ave. Sightlines will be adequate along the site frontage, but some overgrown vegetation along the corner of Sunwood Drive looking to the right on Old Bridgeport Ave will need to be trimmed back to improve existing sightline conditions. It was noted that the existing restricted business development zoning of the property allows a variety of commercial uses subject only to site and/or special exception approvals, uses that may have far more negative impacts than the proposed residential development. The commission has reviewed that subject initial development plans as well as the ensuing potential modifications and revisions up to and including that of November 28th, 2022, submitted to address initial concerns. The commission is familiar with the area and existing site conditions, has considered the proposed use of the site in relation to the existing land use of adjacent parcels, the alternate commercial uses such as the prior restaurant use, the opposite side of Sunwood Drive, permitted by existing zoning with minimal controls, and the concerns expressed by the public in the commission at the public hearing. In its deliberations and discussion, the following observations and findings were noted. 1. Land uses in the area are mixed. The site is commercially zoned and is situated in the Route 8 corridor special development area and access and across Sunwood Drive from a recently approved 30-unit rental apartment proposal known as Brookview Apartments Phase 2. In view of existing conditions, the subject site is no longer appropriately situated for a non-residential use allowed by the existing RBD district. However, any development of the site should only occur under and be governed by specific controls and restrictions of a PDD, allowing the city to know in advance the specifics of the proposed development, with some control over use, design, and intensity. The subject proposal is served by all necessary utilities and is characterized by minor topographic and environmental constraints. A well-designed building is proposed with a traditional design and residential character consistent with the approved Brookview Apartments 2 directly across Sunwood Drive. If approved, the site would no longer be vulnerable to other undesirable commercial uses and activities. The 1.2 acre site, although irregular in shape, has a usable area roughly rectangular in shape, being approximately 400 feet in length with an average depth of about 160 feet, but enjoying a total of about 500 feet of frontage on Sunwood Drive. The property slopes from a high point of about elevation 245 feet at the westerly rear corner on the Sunwood condominium property line to an elevation of approximately 203 feet. The point where it crosses the Burying Ground Brook watercourse in the easterly portion of the site. The site is currently occupied by an existing house as well as the parking related to the former off-site restaurant. Some additional regrading will be necessary to accommodate the proposal. The proposed inland wetlands impacts were reviewed and deemed acceptable by the Inland Wetlands Commission, with a proposed wetlands mitigation area proposed in the city of the Brook Crossing, and a conditional approval was granted. Full utility services are available and all on-site utilities will be located underground. All stormwater runoff will be collected and conveyed to underground storage facilities for detention and cleansing prior to discharge at reduced peak flows for all stormwater events up to and including the 100-year event into the Burying Ground Brook watercourse. The form will approve the Shelton Water Pollution Control Agency for the discharge to the sanitary sewer system will be required prior to final detailed development plan approval. 3, in an effort to respond to commission concerns discussed during the ongoing public hearings, the applicant prepared potential modifications to the original proposal, primarily in regards to site density and intensity, reduced footprint and parking to address such concerns. These modifications are shown on site plans as revised November 28th, 2022, showing 39 apartment units, as well as a further revised dated December 5th, 2022, showing 37 units. Said plans were offered for consideration and comment at the continued hearing of January 18th, 2023. To accommodate the reduced density, changes resulted in reducing and building footprint and incorporation of a minor area of ground level parking for 4 cars beneath the end of the building, necessitating the addition of another story to retain a reasonable density. The proposed parking standards on such plans are intended to be consistent with those set out in the Shelton zoning regulations. However, the visitor space requirement for 1 space for each 2 apartments is rather generous, resulting in the need for 18 to 19 visitor spaces, likely well in excess of what may be realistically needed. Although it will be reasonable to defer accordingly, it will be reasonable to defer as many as 10 spaces, including the 10 tandem spaces, until there is a demonstrated need for them. The basic architectural features are so consistent with those of the approved Brookview Apartments too. The proposed building is of traditional design with gable roofs, fiberglass roof shingles, an exterior of thin stone veneer masonry, shingle siding, and vinyl clapboard siding. Further specifics clarifying the proposed exterior materials may be required and modified as final detailed architectural drawings are prepared for submission as part of the final detailed development plans. Additional building design modifications and materials review may be necessary and will be addressed as final detailed plans are prepared for the commission's approval. 4. The applicant's initial application requested approval of 43 apartment units with the proposed set aside of 10% of 4 units of affordable housing. In response to commission concerns about site organization and intensity, building footprint, etc., the applicant submitted plan modifications that would reduce the building footprint and improve site layout, but would result in a density reduction from 43 units to 39 or 37 units, of which 4 would be set aside as affordable units. In its deliberation, the commission noted that its recently completed quote affordable housing plan recommends that for a development of this size, about 14% of the units should be earmarked as affordable, and therefore 5 units should be set aside as affordable units. The commission recognizes that this was unknown to the applicant at the time of the application, but it is apparent that the applicant was able to modify the floor plan layout and alter the unit mix slightly to achieve the density of 39 units, 5 of which can be set aside as affordable. This can be done without further exterior change in the size and design of the revised building. Therefore, the commission finds that this modification is acceptable and that the 39 unit density will assist in offsetting some of the economic impact of the additional affordable unit. The 39 unit total is still 10% below the 43 units initially required in the subject application and can be accommodated with reasonable adjustments to the parking layout. The commission noted that the rubbish disposal / dumpster is conveniently located at the rear of the lower level parking area to assure limited visibility to residents and visitors. A solid masonry gated enclosure will be provided using materials consistent with the principal building materials with a convenient gate for tenant access. A detailed design of the enclosure shall be added to the engineering detail sheet. All site curbing shall be extruded Portland cement concrete or better. Not less than 2 designated EV charging stations shall be conveniently located on the site plan. The site plan necessitates several retaining walls of varying height, some of which require guide railing for protection. The Versa green wall detail shown may be adequate for relatively low walls, but a detail of walls of significant height shall be provided, together with a wooden beam guard railing and or other appropriate safety feet protection at the top of the wall. There is no indication of any exterior parking lot lighting indicating on the lighting plan. Additional detail is needed, including proposed light fixture and pole details, with care taken to avoid negative offset lighting impacts. The proposed landscaping plan will require refinement to reflect final site plan changes. Plant material selection should be re-examined to assure the use of non-invasive native species for all plantings except lawn, and the overall quality and spacing of plant material shall be further improved. Appropriate notes should be added assuring the commission of the right to require additional plantings if deemed necessary. 6. Development of a portion of the site is expected to involve significant excavation and regrading, including possible rock blasting and removal. Every effort should be made to minimize such blasting. If blasting is necessary, the applicant must adhere to all requirements of the fire marshal's office, as well as the city's blasting ordinance and regulations. At minimum, all properties and structures abutting or within a reasonable distance of the proposed blast site.
Within 500 feet.
At minimum, all properties and structures abutting or within a reasonable distance of the proposed blast site.
It's supposed to be 500 feet. That's what the fire marshal regs are that are online. Yeah, but that's what I communicated to Mr. Panico.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll,
At minimum, all properties and structures within 500 feet of the proposed blast site shall have pre-blast surveys. The applicant shall submit a blasting program as part of the final detailed development plans and prior to the initiation of site excavation and regrading activities set forth in detail, the blasting program, hours of operation, provisions for and extent of pre-blast surveys, blast monitoring, times of blasting, insurance coverage, etc. The subject plans are referred to the fire marshal and the city engineer for their review and comments. The city engineer in his letter June 8th, 2022 noted a variety of concerns and details to be addressed, which the petitioner's engineer has attempted to address. One significant requirement outstanding was that the Sunwood Drive is in a state of disrepair, requiring it to be improved. The approved development across Sunwood Drive has been burdened with a similar responsibility. Therefore, the subject applicant should coordinate with the city engineer and the other applicant to identify and implement the needed improvements. At the time of final approval, such work must be assured in the form of a site improvement bond. With the submission of final detailed development plans, a follow-up report should be solicited from the city engineer with regards to the satisfaction of all issues cited. All final concerns of staff and municipal departments must be addressed prior to approval of said final plans. 8. The statement of uses and standards needs additional minor revision and modification to clarify certain language, confirming the maximum density, the minimum number of affordable units required to be set aside, and to correlate with the final action of the commission. After further discussion of the application of the proposed initial development plans, the commission is prepared to render its decision and authorize staff to prepare a favorable resolution for the consideration and action. On the basis of the findings and concerns noted above, the following resolution is offered. Whereas the applicant has submitted a complete petition for the approval of initial development plans for a residential rental apartment building and the adoption of a planned development district on a site of 1.2 acres located at 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue, which property is currently zoned RBD district. And whereas the applicant has submitted site and architectural plans for said proposal, including an engineering report and a traffic assessment in order to provide the commission with the required information and details necessary to render initial development plan conditional approval and adoption of the proposed plan development district. And whereas the commission held a duly noticed public hearing on July 20th, 2022, continued to October 19th and November 30th of 2022, and completed on January 18th, 2023 to consider said application. And whereas the commission is familiar with the subject site and surrounding area as well as currently applicable zoning regulations and has discussed and reviewed in detail such requests and all accompanying documents thereto, and subject to the comments set forth above, the commission notes the following. 1. The petition complies with the applicable zoning requirements. 2, necessary conditional approvals of the Inland Wetlands Commission and Fire Marshal have been received, as well as initial comments from the city engineer. Final detailed development plans will require additional modification and revision to address the outstanding concerns and limitations set forth above, as well as approval of the sanitary sewer service by the WPCA. Specifically, the maximum allowable density will be limited to 39 apartment units, 5 of which must be set aside as affordable housing units together with supporting on-site parking. All additional concerns identified herein will need to be addressed and resolved prior to submission of final detailed development plans. The proposed site is currently occupied by house and restaurant-related parking areas, is characterized by variable topography and crossed by burying ground brook that must be considered for any reasonable development of the site. The proposed stormwater management plan satisfies the city ordinance, adequately addresses stormwater drainage issues, and proposes to discharge into underground galleys with a reduction of peak flows prior to discharge to burying ground brook. All utilities are available at the site. 4, the existing RBD zoning allows as of right, subject to only site plan approval, a variety of non-residential uses, including restaurant, office, and automotive uses that may result in far greater impacts on the adjacent residential condominiums than the proposed development. Proposed site development and the residential apartment building design will be subject to careful review and controls under the provisions of a planned development district and will reflect the approved residential apartment building on the opposite site of Sunwood Drive in architectural design features and exterior materials used. 5, existing and proposed utility services are adequate for the additional development. The proposed parking facilities will be adequate to serve the proposed building, and projected traffic will not overload the street system in the area. 6, the submission of final detailed development plans will need to address all outstanding concerns of the commission and city engineer, as well as all other applicable municipal boards and commissions. A detailed program addressing all aspects of any anticipated blasting must be provided prior to any blasting activity. 7, the proposed PDD encompasses a parcel of greater than 20,000 square feet and is consistent with the comprehensive plan of zoning for the city. Now, therefore, on the basis of the above, the representations made at the public hearings and other discussions of the commission, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission hereby takes the following actions. A, in accordance with the provisions of section 34 of the Shelton regulations, the subject initial development plan is hereby conditionally approved, subject to the following modifications, stipulations, and adjustments. 1, modifications and revisions to said initial development plans in response to all concerns noted above and satisfaction of all engineering concerns of the city engineer and comments and concerns of the Inland Wetlands Commission, as well as any and all other applicable municipal boards and commissions. 2, submission of a detailed blasting program, if required, that addresses pre-blast survey criteria, evidence of adequate liability insurance, etc., in compliance with all state and city blasting ordinances. 3, submission of a revised statement of use and standards to clarify and address outstanding concerns of staff regarding permitted uses and applicable standards, including maximum density and minimum set aside of affordable units, which modified SOUS shall be submitted for staff review prior to the effective date noted below. 4, approval of proposed site and architectural building design and details with particular attention to consistency of building design and use of proposed exterior material finishes on all building elevations with the architectural features of the approved Brookview Apartment 2. 5, all utility services shall be located underground. B, on the basis of this conditional approval of initial development plans for the subject site, subject to the stipulations and modifications set forth above, the proposed PDD is hereby adopted for reasons found in discussion preceding the motion and shall be identified as PDD blank. And I shall look that up.
Okay. PDD adoption. Okay, and said PDD adoption set forth herein shall become effective on Friday, June 30th, 2023 at 8 a.m. Mr. Rossetti, can you go back to
Make a motion to.
discuss?
For discussion? Oh, second.
Okay. So there's a motion for discussion made by Commissioner Parkins, seconded by Commissioner Amato. Do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Donato.
Abstain.
Okay, and Commissioner Onofrio,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion is passed 501. Okay, so a question that I have, Mr. Rossetti, if you look on page, my pages are different. Under resolution, the second whereas. Read that one more time.
Number 2.
No, the second whereas, right after the resolution.
The second whereas under the resolution states. Whereas the applicant has submitted site and architectural plans for said proposal, including an engineering report and a traffic assessment in order to provide the commission with the required information and details necessary to render initial development plan, conditional approval, and adoption of the proposed plan development district.
Good, okay. Okay, now go to number 3.
Under the resolution,
Yeah, the proposed site is
Yeah.
currently,
you want to be read?
the first couple sentences.
Okay. Item 3 under resolution states. The proposed site is currently occupied by a house and restaurant related parking areas. Is characterized by variable topography and crossed by Burying Ground Brook that must be considered for any reasonable development of the site.
Okay. All right. Oh, I just want to point out under the now therefore, letter A, in accordance with the provisions of section 34 of the Shelton zoning regulations. I don't think the word zoning came out. And I want to make sure that someone wouldn't get the impression that we were referring to some other regulations that exist in town. Okay, any questions from the commissioners on this particular?
I have a, yeah, I'd like to correct. Page 7. Plant materials, first paragraph, plant materials selection should be re-examined to ensure the use of native species, not the use of non-invasive. Okay, that's just.
Native species, yep. Mhm.
Just scratch the non-invasive.
What's the beginning of that paragraph, read?
What's the name?
It's
Paragraph.
number 5
Oh, it is 5.
on page 7.
This is the fifth.
Yeah, there's,
Oh, there's different,
it's
okay.
different.
So
That's
it's number
why,
5.
number 5, yeah.
Just scratch the.
Oh, it's towards the end, right before, it's like the next to the last sentence before number 6.
Yeah,
Plant material selection should be reexamined to ensure the use of
native species.
native species. So we're just taking out the hyphenated words, non-invasive. Right,
All doesn't make any sense.
okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Onofrio, do you have anything for us?
Nope, no comments for me.
Okay. All right. There is any other final comments, questions, or concerns? Is there a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, as submitted, okay. So there's a motion to approve the resolution as submitted from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second from Commissioner Amato. So on the motion made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Amato. I'll do roll call vote. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
I'm gonna vote aye, but I just, for the record, I want it known I was not here for the discussion, because that led to the favorable consensus, but I did watch the public hearing.
Mhm.
just recently.
Okay, so you're going on the record that you are familiar enough with the application.
So I vote aye.
Okay, Commissioner Moto?
Aye.
Commissioner Donato?
I'm abstaining, and I will also say for the record that I was not here. I was not a member of the commission
Right,
during most of the discussion.
okay,
I think it wouldn't be proper.
right. Okay, Commissioner Nafrio?
Aye.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. The motion has been approved by a vote of 5-0-1. Okay, very good.
Just think about it, all we went through with the, SPZC thing.
Oh,
That's exciting. Yeah.
oh. Don't bring up that night.
I was wondering if someone was gonna bring that up.
It's been a long
Right.
week. a long week, right?
It sure has, see? Good things come to those who wait. All right. We're live here, people. All right, so application, next thing on the agenda is application 2227, Dominic Thomas for 62 Center Street. At 62 Center Street, Assessor's Map 129D, lots 1551 for modification to PDD number 90. And final site development plans for a retail office space with a 5-level parking garage and rooftop restaurant. Public hearing for this application closed on March 29th, 2023. After discussion of the proposal on May 10th, the commission authorized staff to prepare a favorable resolution, which was sent earlier today to the commission for review. Mr. Rossetti, would you again please read the resolution, and I'll ask commission to hold comments until the end.
Application 2227, the mixed-use parking structure at 62 Center Street. The applicant 62 Center Street LLC has filed an amendment to PDD number 90 for approval of final site development plans to construct a 6-story structure containing 162 commercial parking spaces, a rooftop restaurant / beer garden, and retail spaces on the street levels. This proposal and potential approval would replace the action of application number 18-37, which provided for 42 residential units, on-site parking, and street level retail. The location of the proposed development is on property owned by 62 Center LLC, with street addresses 62 through 65 Center Street and 325 Coram Avenue, a total of 21,007 square feet or 0.48 acres. The site gradually rises from east to west along Center Street, with unconnected accesses from Center Street and Coram Avenue. Underneath the site, an old masonry culvert carries burying ground brook, which will be replaced by a precast concrete box culvert. The site has been used for various commercial and retail uses for over 60 years and is surrounded by commercial and residential activities typical of a downtown area. This proposal is in harmony with these uses and may prove to be beneficial to the downtown community. Staff has reviewed the site plans entitled Mixed Use Building, prepared by James R. Swift, dated November 6th, 2018, and revised October 11th, 2022. We have also reviewed the architectural plans and renderings entitled Mixed Use Building by Mingalillo and Associates, dated October 22nd, 2022, and as revised.
What's the date again?
October 26th,
Mhm.
2022, and as revised. A duly noticed public hearing opened on January 25th, 2023, and was continued to February 16th and closed on March 29th, 2023. Comments expressed at said hearings include the following. 1, the facility's architectural style should have brick and stone exterior finishes to complement neighboring structures. 2, faux windows and other architectural details must be included to help disguise the facility as a typical commercial building. 3, the future capacity of the new underground culvert shall allow for storm surges, and care needs to be taken during the construction of the culvert to not disturb the habitat or surrounding environment more than is necessary. 4, safety features need to be installed on the rooftop restaurant's perimeter to protect patrons above and the pedestrians below. 5, the right-of-way owned and shared by the neighboring property must be preserved and access allowed by all parties. 6,
One more, go ahead.
a specific explanation of delivery access, and employee parking for the supporting businesses needs to be provided. In response to these comments, the applicant submitted several updated architectural and renderings and sample materials, with a positive consensus reached based on the final rendering dated March 8th, 2023 by Mangalello and Associates. The commission requests that all exterior treatments shown on this rendering be carried around the building. The applicant has also provided the commission with details of additional landscaping and an additional wall/building coping to be installed around the perimeter of the rooftop outdoor dining areas. This will increase the distance between patrons and the edge of the structure to limit accidents and increase safety. The building department may require additional safety measures. The drainage systems and culvert construction must satisfy all requirements of the city engineer, DEP, and any other federal or state agencies. The Inland Wetlands Commission has granted approval for this design in prior applications. On-site access is provided by driveways on both Center Street and Coram Avenue. The parking on levels 1, Center Street, 2, Coram Avenue, and 5 through 6 for the restaurant is primarily intended to support the on-site facilities, leaving levels 3 through 4 primarily for general commercial parking. These spaces are not intended to provide overnight parking for downtown residences. However, a vehicle owner may leave a vehicle overnight in the interest of public safety. The future parking garage operators will need to provide payment and service details of their operation to staff. Similar to application 1837, the subject proposal has 2 entry-exit driveways supporting site-generated traffic and businesses, which will reduce the need to rely on the existing right-of-way abutting 48 Center Street. Any additional activity, such as commercial deliveries, shall not impede the actions of other users. The applicant is responsible for resurfacing this access way before final certificates of occupancy are issued. As a private service will remove rubbish, no city rubbish services will be required or provided on Center Street or Coram Avenue. All utility services shall be provided to the site underground. If the commission is prepared to dispose of this application currently, the following conditions and stipulations are recommended. 1, submission of detailed elevation drawings of the entire building to address previous comments of the commission and any outstanding concerns that arise from the final review. 2, no permits shall be issued until a soil and erosion control bond is submitted in an amount determined by the city engineer and has form and surety acceptable to Corporation Council. 3, no permits shall be issued until an appropriate bond is in place covering any work in the public rights of way in an amount determined by the city engineer and has form and surety acceptable to the Corporation Council. 4, before any site work, the limit of disturbance must be flagged and soil and erosion sediment control measures installed as per the handbook plan utilizing the Connecticut Guide for Erosions and Sediment Control, dated to January 1985 and as revised. 5, compliance with all requirements and conditions of the city engineer, WPCA, and the Wetlands Commission, Fire Marshal, and local traffic authority, if not already obtained. 6, a copy of the DEP and conduct permit must be provided to the city engineer and planning and zoning offices before any permits are issued. 7, the P&Z administrator or city engineer must be notified at least 48 hours before the start of any construction. 8, the commission reserves the right to request an additional vegetative buffer or fence screening if issues arise in the renovated areas, and all plant materials shall be native to the New England region. 9, this approval shall be null and void if construction and site improvements are not completed within 5 years of the approval date.
Okay, is there a motion to discuss? Okay, there's a motion from Commissioner Commissioner Parkins for discussion, and Commissioner D'Amato has seconded it. So I will do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins. Commissioner Motto. Commissioner Donato. Commissioner Nafrio.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay. Motion is passed 6-0. So for discussion purposes, could you go that very last number 4? Would you read that one more time?
Before any site work, the limit of disturbance must be flagged and erosion and sediment control measures installed as per the approved control plan, utilizing the Connecticut guideline for erosion and sediment control handbook dated January 1985 and as revised.
Do you have Connecticut Council on Soil and Water Conservation?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, please.
All right, and then just back up to the, out of the 6 comments that were expressed at the hearings.
Yep.
Number 5, all right, the right of way owned and shared by the neighboring property must be preserved and access allowed by all parties. What do you mean by all parties?
So.
By the abutters, by the occupants of the,
By all parties. It's a right of way for
Mhm.
any of the parties who have access to it to continue to use that right of way.
okay, I was just wondering if it, not by all parties, but to all parties. But you're saying by the property owners.
It's not just for the property owners.
No, the access has to be allowed by the property owners. They cannot somehow say, sorry, but the person on the other side of the driveway, you can't use that.
Correct.
So that's why I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did you want to change there?
No.
Okay.
no, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Okay. All
You
right,
guys know which right of way she's talking about in between.
yeah, by,
Okay.
next to Porky's.
That's small.
Yeah.
They have the porch built over there.
All right, does any,
Can you just go back up to the,
else?
list of all the dates with hearings and stuff?
We're at the bottom of the first page dated October 26th, or the notice public hearing reopened January 25th.
Yeah, so staff,
It was continued.
yeah, so just, if you could bring that up just a little bit more.
It's bottom page 1.
Can you Move it up. I can't.
Yeah. Keep going, it's the bottom of page 1. The other way.
I was
the
at
other
the
way.
bottom.
I can only see the first 2 lines of the staff.
I'm sorry, Ruth, but,
That, yeah,
okay.
that, wait, okay, oh, stop. Stop,
He did.
I'm
He's not touching it.
it's still moving. I
Oh.
swear to God, it was like a
Maybe I'm
ghost.
I don't know.
I'm not touching.
He hasn't.
That's so weird. Going all over the place. Okay,
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other commissioner have any questions?
I just had a question about the sanitation. Can you just go back to that, how that read?
What part of it was that?
Where was that?
that's one of the line items.
Yeah, one of the line items, but,
Oh, 1 through 9?
whatever, hold on. I was just,
It moves.
It's possessed.
there was, for who was responsible for the sanitation, was basically, like, I would assume that.
Oh, you mean the rubbish services, that one? As a private service will remove rubbish?
Where are you on here?
It's right above the first 9, those 9.
Oh, that private service, to remove rubbish.
Yeah.
No city rubbish service is required.
Right.
All utility service, okay, so we don't get involved as to, like, I would assume all the retail stores have their own sanitation service.
They're gonna have a interior
Correct.
dumpster.
Give me
And
that again, I'm sorry.
there's gonna be an interior dumpster on like the first floor in the
Right.
parking garage areas. And that's where private garbage service would come in.
They won't.
You are there.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I'm
You don't
fine,
care.
but now, and the restaurant is gonna bring their garbage down the other, they have an elevator to bring it down.
Mhm.
Now, what about the cleaning of the garage itself?
That will be up to the applicant.
Okay,
It's privately owned.
Yes.
right, whoever, well, that,
So when whoever operates this project, when they come in to open that business,
Mhm.
we will have a list of questions.
Right.
How's the payment gonna work? How's the enforcement gonna work? How are you gonna deal with EVs? How are you gonna deal with people parking overnight? How are you gonna deal with lighting? How are you gonna deal with safety? I have no
Okay.
doubt there will be a host of questions, but I think anyone who has run a parking garage facility should be able to answer those.
okay, I'm just concerned about,
Yeah. Yeah, because the parking garage would be considered a separate commercial operation. They can't just, once the parking garage is built, walk in the next day and start doing things. They have to have,
It's a plan of attack.
yeah.
okay,
approval by the city to operate a business like anything else.
Plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Nafria, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns about the resolution?
Nope, nope. I'm good.
Okay. All right, any final comments, questions, or concerns about the, from the commission? Okay, is there a motion to, move the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, that's a motion to approve.
Approve that.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the, resolution from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
Commissioner Parker, a second.
Okay, so on the motion made for approval, made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Parkins, let's do a roll call. Commissioner Amato.
Aye.
Commissioner Donato.
Aye.
Commissioner Anafrio.
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly.
I much needed building.
And the chair votes aye. Motion has been approved by a vote of 6-0. And seeing that there's no other item on the agenda, chair declares this evening's meeting is adjourned as of 9:25 PM. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Dan.
Good night.
You're all